evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 147th take, live from the HF Barcelona studios of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show, a blast from the past, and then back again. That's what we're doing tonight. So it's really exciting. I'm so excited to have you guys with us tonight because we are going to be enthralled with a magnificent take. Really excited to have this gentleman on. He's been on before in a very small capacity, but tonight is going to be all about him and his journey and his story. So before I get to formal introductions, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible, and that, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate announced earlier this week that they are now shipping both the Undercrown Shady XX and Undercrown Dojo Dogma Maduro to Drew Diplomat retailers nationwide. Drew Estate announced the 2020 editions of Undercrown Shady XX and the Dojo Dogma Maduro during the DE Summer Takeover campaign and highlighted them on Freestyle Live Special Edition. Both the Undercrown Shady XX and Dojo Dogma Maduro share a powerhouse blend that is similar to the Undercrown Corona Viva. Both cigars feature a toothy Mexican San Andreas Maduro wrapper, spicy Connecticut stock cut Habano binder, and showcase the highest quality plantation Nicaraguan and Brazilian filler tobaccos. Jonathan Drew, president and founder of Drew Estate, adds both Eminem and Drew Estate were quintessential underdogs. Everyone laughed at the two of us, claiming that we didn't have a chance, but then we didn't fit the mold and that we didn't belong. Well, of course, the story reads on, and y'all know how it ends. Both underdogs rise above to break the mold and become the legends. Enough said. So check out your Drew Diplomat retailer today for the Shady XX 2020 release and the Underground Dojo Dogma Maduro as well. And as well, tonight's show sponsor is sponsored by Oveja Negra Bands, 4 unique companies who share a passion to provide innovative cigars for the next generation for our cigar enthusiasts. Black Label Trading Company, Blackwork Studio, Dissident, and Emilio are all combining premium tobacco with an artisanal touch. Oveja Negra, where art and tobacco collide. Join the flock and visit OvejaNegraCigars.com to learn more. And welcome to our 147th take. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome tonight's guest of honor for our 147th take, brought to you by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united, Mr. Danny Vazquez. Danny, how we doing tonight?
What's going on, man? I'm hyped now. For 10:30 at night, I'm hyped.
I'm serious, right? I mean, we got to get the juices flowing, man. I mean, you're a parent, I'm a parent. We just did Thanksgiving this week. The batteries are at an all-time low. Well, not as low as they will be during Christmas time, but
right.
we needed revitalization. So I figured, let's get the energy pumped up a little bit. So, man, I'm so excited to have you on the show. I mean, we've had you before, but welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So, we're going to be talking all things you and the 2.0 version of Baracoa Cigar Company. I'm so excited about this. I know that it's been getting a lot of play on social media the last couple weeks now since you kind of announced, and I know everyone. I mean, the show is pouring in. We've got plenty of people wanting to hear what the next iteration is going to be. I know we're going to get all into it and everything.
Sure.
But really excited to see you coming back and everything, especially, I mean, especially around the holidays. I mean, it was kind of apropos, man, the gift to the cigar industry, you coming back. So I'm really excited, man. I really am. So, but before we kind of get into it, I kind of wanted to start with a lighter issue. Like I just mentioned a second ago, with both parents, we both have young kids, and we're about the same age. So I mean, there are obviously things as kids that we remember that now we're like re-experiencing as adults with our children.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I've been watching a lot of like movies lately, and like kind of through the eyes of as an adult, but the eyes that I remember as a child. And I asked you this afternoon via text. I was like, how do you feel about the movie Home Alone? And this is a dirty trick. I don't know. I didn't ask you if this was for the record, but I am going to quote you. So I hope you don't mind.
No, it's fine. I remember.
You said cinematic genius. So,
yeah.
Which I don't necessarily disagree with. I really enjoy the film. I think we were talking about this before the show started. Sans like pre 9/11 airport security. and lack of cell phones and everything, the movie kind of holds up and it ages pretty well. Like watching it today, I wasn't like
That'll never happen.
Yeah, it wasn't that crazy. The VHS tape, mind you, that was a little weird, but
yeah.
As a throwback to my earlier days and stuff. But it wasn't like totally like just out of the rock or anything.
Keep in mind that when you asked me that, I took myself back to 1990 and 10-year-old me, and just remembering how much I loved that movie. It was just like, I just remember like, man, this kid is wild. Like, yeah, this kid is a genius, right? Like, I would have never thought to do that. You know, obviously, in the universe of greatest movies ever, is it up there? I don't know, but it was great. I mean, to the point where there's documentaries about it now, right? Like all the stories and kind of things like we were kind of talking about earlier. So, but that said, yeah, man, that's an all-time classic. I mean, you got to put that up there with, you know, the ones they talk about like Goonies and you know, movies like that from like our age when we were younger, and it's dope. If you don't like it, whatever.
Yeah, I mean the John Hughes era of like coming of age tales and stuff, like, you know, in the 80s it was all about teenagers, and it was really funny. He kind of went back in time. He became a more children's filmmaker, you know, after after that, and Home Alone kind of kicked that off for him. And it was I you know, it's funny you use the word genius because, and we've said it a couple times tonight already, but I'm not sure if I knew what the word genius meant when I was at 8 years old, I guess. But I do remember thinking, wow, exactly kind of what you were saying. Like, wow, I can't believe he just did that. That's just so cool. Like, and everything. But one thing okay, so I was asking this about before the show. So you grew up in Florida. So you spent some time up north, the DMV, which is, you know, north to us Southerners. You know, you're from Florida, I'm from Texas. So the DMV seems like so far north and everything, but they do actually have seasons up there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, not like here, you know, right now I got a hoodie on, but it's because, you know, I'm also Puerto Rican, so I get cold a little quicker, but I really probably wouldn't need it. But, you know, up there now, I see, you know, I talk to friends that's still in Maryland, and they're freezing, you know, that whole area just right now. Well, even you compared to where I'm at right now, it's cold, right? And
yeah, it's going to be in the 30s tonight. So
yeah, here was like mid 70s, and we were out all day, you know, just outside playing and with the kids and stuff. So yeah, much different than what I was in.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the reason I mentioned this is because, like, my idea and like our idea as children of Christmas, because if you go back and watch all the films, is this fairy tale, and I call it a fairy tale because of the way you and I grew up. The White Christmas, the quintessential like Rockefeller, you know, Rockwellian Christmas, you know, with the snow and everything, and I just remember as a child just always being disappointed because I think I can count on my hands how many times I had a white Christmas in my life, and it was one, and it really wasn't white. It was mostly just sleet. And I was kind of excited because it was white outside on Christmas morning, and I was like, okay, this is the best thing. This is the best thing I've ever experienced in my life. You know, but I mean, did you ever have a white Christmas, or did it take you moving up north for that actually to ever happen?
Oh, in Florida, no. I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, it flurried one time randomly in the late 80s, early 90s, something. I ran outside like, what is going on? Like, this is crazy to me. And that was fun. But in Maryland, I think we only had one white Christmas, because typically it was too early, it was kind of too early for it to snow. It would actually start snowing January, February-ish through like April. I mean, I remember snow like I don't know, 6-8 inches in April. One of the years we were there. So yeah, no, not a lot of white Christmases for me. One that I remember.
So here's a question I've got you for Day, because this is the questions that I've been asking myself as I've been watching these things that are basically lies to the way I grew up, and the way that my children more than likely will grow up. I seriously doubt we'll be anywhere other than Texas.
Right.
For my the next
Foreseeable.
remaining years. Yeah, exactly. Foreseeable future.
Right.
Like what? Like how did that register, the fact that you never had a white Christmas? Did it ever bother you, or am I just like weirdly obsessing over this and I'm like the weird one out here?
Um, no, I think you're weirdly obsessing a little bit. Not bad. No, never. I mean, we thought about it and we talked about it. And obviously, there's a song about White Christmas, right? Where who the hell knows where that guy was living? But I mean, even the song says I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, right? Because it doesn't really happen a lot.
It doesn't happen for half the United States, where like I
Right.
said.
So no, but also listen, sitting in your house, and if this is for people that haven't either experienced snow or a lot of snow, sitting in your house looking through the window and seeing the snow on the ground and it falling and you seeing it and you see like that clear path, clear like open field full of snow. It's beautiful. It's really cool. But living and working and dealing with snow, it sucks. Like, it's really cool to see. So it's like, hey, it didn't snow on Christmas. Like, oh, thank God I can throw all the wrappers from the toys away or the presents away, and we're gonna, things are gonna be normal for at least another month, right? So no, it never really bothered me like that. Now, here's the thing: the kids would get excited. I remember the kids getting super excited that it was, there was snow on the ground for Christmas or whatever. But no, I never really. I mean, it's funny growing up in Florida, you'd see palm trees decorated, right? I mean, obviously palm trees lit up. So uh, leaving here and never seeing that again, I thought was weird. It's like, man, I'm like, well, I guess there's no palm trees around here, so makes sense. So, but to come back now to Florida and it's like, oh yeah, this is what it was like. Like it's just hot. I mean, it's not, it's, it's not anything like we even in because we lived in Georgia for a little while too. I mean, it would get really, really cold, into the teens sometimes. Um, but here, I mean, you could probably, I mean, the pool's probably really cold, probably in the 70s also, but you could jump in,
And survive.
and survive. Yeah,
It's not.
right.
What about other things when you were when you were a kid, that like watching like films and stuff that were. I'm just curious because again, it was just something that was I was kind of harkening back, and like I said, we're both around the same age. I'm sure we watched some of the same films. We said like,
Yeah.
what's something like that you look back on and you're like, okay, as an adult, that's still real. That's still really cool, and I thought it was cool as a kid.
Oh, dude, I'm obsessed with like the Back to the Future movies. Back to the Future 2, when they took it to the future and to see all that stuff, right? And whatever year it was that they figured out, Marty McFly went to recently. It was like I don't know, last 5 years or something like that. It was that the actual time date that Marty McFly actually flew to in the future.
Yeah, 2015.
Uh,
Yeah, it was 2015.
was it?
So yeah,
Was it
October
2015?
2000. Yeah, it was 2015.
So that was cool. That I remember that year that movie was big. A lot of people were watching for that. So that was always really cool for me. What is one of the like first like Batman's. Again, this is I'm kind of dating myself, right? But those are movies that I could still go back and watch. And even though I shouldn't have been watching like Coming to America as a kid, um, I did, right? So, but even that movie, I will watch it. Like if I'm changing channels and it's on, I'm gonna stop and watch it, right? So there's a ton. I mean, there's a ton of movies from when I was a kid that are just still whether they're relevant or not, but just still kind of take me back. Like, oh, that movie's so good. Like that movie's so cool.
Yeah, I'm a
There's a
sucker
there's
for Back to the Future too. I'm
oh
yeah, I'm with you. I like all three. I can totally
yeah
watch all three. Even the third one, which goes a little is a little hokey, but
yeah
the whole thing is just fantastic.
right.
Um, it's interesting you mentioned Coming to America. My first rated R film is still a movie that I'll go back and I'll watch obsessively. It's Tombstone. Tombstone was my first rated R film, and I absolutely still love it to this day. I loved it as a kid, love it to this day. It's iconic. So,
Never seen it, but
you've never seen Tombstone?
I've never seen Tombstone.
Oh man,
you and I have much different upbringings, though. You gotta remember that.
That's fine. That's fine that you didn't watch it when you were a child. But you definitely need to watch it now.
Sure.
You may not be in Texas anymore, but you need to
Right.
you need to harken back some Western roots there. But it was just something I was thinking about, because like I said, I know we're around the same age. I know we have kids, and it was just like, like, man, this is still fun and really cool as hell. So I just kind of wanted to kick off tonight, just talking a little bit about that, waxing nostalgic. But so
Yeah, for sure.
I appreciate you
You know,
humoring me.
Karate Kid is another one, and when they did that Cobra Kai like reboot or whatever show on
Right.
Netflix, absolute fun. I mean, I wonder, like, look, if you separate yourself with the show, all that. I mean, it was okay, but it was just like I was just such a fan of it that, I mean, so many people loved it just because of that. Now I think about.
It is like they're doing a lot of. I mean, they're doing a lot of throwback stuff. Like they're bringing. They haven't released it yet, just because of COVID. But the new Top Gun,
Oh yeah, I heard
and
about
stuff.
that.
I
Yeah.
mean, that they're just. I mean, they're pulling on the emotional heartstrings of, the younger versions of us, and where you can go back and just like, oh yeah, I remember that. And
Yeah.
the Cobra Kai thing is probably like, is the show really that great? No, but it's incredibly well done, because you're just like really enjoying the hell out of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's funny.
So, but again, really appreciate you humoring me there, Danny. So let's
Of course.
let's get into tonight's major point, though. And as always, it's brought to you by Wood Butcher, Maine, introducing durable and attractive wooden creations for your kitchen, backyard grill, and home using native Maine wood and other exotic wood species. Wood Butcher's made products include butcher blocks, cutting boards, coasters, grill grate cleaners, and an ELOSOFUMAR favorite, the red oak cigar ashtray and cocktail coaster, plus many more. The Wood Butcher Maine's team's passion for food, the Pine Tree State, and craftsmanship of the highest quality show in absolutely every piece. Visit woodbutchermaine.com. Yes, that's woodbutchermaine.com to explore the current collection. So, Danny, I mean, while we're here, man, you're back. Baracoa Cigar Company is back. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that this was probably a amazing process to kind of decide to bring this back and everything. So I mean, right off the bat, I have to ask the question: Why is it
Why?
back? Why are you coming back?
Why? Yeah. Why? I don't know, man. No, I'm just kidding. I don't. It was something that I had. I don't know if fantasize is the word, or just kind of would think about periodically. Maybe manifested is another way, but with all the FDA stuff, it was just never really um, viable, right? I was just like, oh, what's the point right now? I had gotten a few offers, to say the least, to buy the brand, kind of as soon as I left, or I stopped, and obviously got on the radars of people that watch Roma, and so that was interesting too. And honestly, almost pulled the trigger one time, but thankfully, my wife, as being smarter than me, pretty much on everything else, said, no, don't do that. Like, who cares? Just like, just keep it for us. You just never know. Or it's like, why would you do that? And I said, okay, but um, at the same time, it was still that feeling. It's like, man, that would be cool. But I never really saw how it would happen. Because yeah, it is a, pre-August 8th, 2016 product, but how viable is a company if that's the only blend or brand that I can come out with, right? So that said, with one week left in Texas, essentially, the announcement came, about the FDA kind of indefinitely suspending it, right? So, um, where it had crossed my mind up until that point, it wasn't something I was going to do. Um, and then just once I got here and kind of got here, Florida, um, and things kind of settled, like the questions kept popping up, and we just kept talking about it. My wife my wife and I kept talking about it, and I said, well, if we're gonna do it, then let's just do it. Let's do it big, right? Let's do, can we make this a viable company? I didn't want to just come back out as a brand, or I didn't want to just, or one SKU or one thing, and I don't know, make it look like a limited edition kind of one hit wonder, and bounce out. I wanted to do it for real. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at now, and we're in the process of finishing and crossing all the T's and dotting the I's to make sure that we're ready for this. And so far the response has been phenomenal, to say the least. Aside from social media, I mean, I'm not even talking about social. I mean, just personal, direct to me messages, calls, um, and it's been humbling. It's been honestly more than I anticipated, and that just kind of jazzes us up, right? And we just get super excited about seeing other people getting excited about something we're doing, right? So I don't know. I mean, and now, right off the bat, I'm on here with you and chilling with my homeboy Bear,
It's
chilling with my homie.
it's interesting that you mentioned our relationship, Denny, because I at the time when you made the announcement that you were vacating Baracoa at the time, and you were saying goodbye. We didn't know each other at all. I think we exchanged some messages over like social media, but nothing like to the extent that we do now, right? And I had seen other brands go, being sold off or leaving, similar reasons and everything. But with you, for some reason, it really hurt. Now, I wasn't mad like that kind of hurt. Like it
Oh
just,
no, yeah,
it really, it mixed all the emotions, man. I was pissed at the FDA. I mean, I was just,
yeah,
that was me who you can count on one hand how many times I've smoked the Voyage. Twice, and they were both gifted to me by you. So I never even paid for one of your cigars, which is just tragic, which will change soon, which is nice.
we'll
But
make sure of that. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
exactly, that will definitely change. But um, that was my reaction. I mean, what? I mean, obviously you had a piece about it, you came to terms about it, but what were your emotions like when you decided, okay, the FDA is too hot right now. We just, how viable can we
Right.
be? As you said, like,
Right.
what were the emotions around that decision?
So I'll tell you, I mean, again, being involved with Save the Leaf, the prior year before I had kind of just stopped, or shut down the company, I was watching very closely the FDA stuff, which at the time in 2016, although they'd been kind of talking about it, not a lot of people really understood what it meant. I mean, part of our job, is, and again, we were all volunteers, and I just kind of help, establish the thing, and help run the thing. By default, became the face of Save the Leaf. I was watching very closely all these things, and at the time, there wasn't a ton of information that kept coming to us, and there was a lot that we didn't know, and the only thing that we'd understood was just like, man, this just doesn't make sense. Like, how could this possibly pass, or how could this possibly just keep going? Like, well, look, we'll launch this brand, and we'll give it a go, and I'm sure things will change. I mean, you can't just shut down this industry like that. Now it turns out I was right, just a few years early. um, so I honestly had kind of already started seeing the writing on the wall a bit, because just nothing was changing. And um and I was in a conversation, uh, with someone in the industry. What a name drop, right? With Robert Caldwell at one of his events, and he's like, "Dude, you have, we were talking about going to the trade show, and me getting a booth at the trade show, and I was talking to him. He's like, "Dude, you have to do it. Like, it cost. Yeah, there's a cost to it, but you'll get that back. And, a lot of people know you, and this and that." And I'm like, yeah, but I can't come out with anything new, right? So, although to me, at the time, And it's like, yeah, I probably could have got some new accounts and this and that, but how long would that kind of go forward if I can't come out with a new product? And you know, and if you remember, I mean, this was like when that social media kind of started taking off. And I was kind of one of the first-ish guys to build their name on social media, if anything. And I just calculated in my head, I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I'm going to dump a bunch of money into this, to something I can't expand. And, you know, and some of the same thought process that went into this of coming back is like, I wouldn't be able to create a full company because I won't have the portfolio. I wouldn't be able to sell enough of the cigars to make it a real thing and follow. So, I wasn't necessarily sad. I mean, I was like, oh man, that sucks. But you know, we were debt free. I mean, if anything, we made money off of it. It was super fun, right? I met some of the some of the coolest people in the industry. I did get to do a trade show where I shared a booth, and you know, I just kind of took it as, hey, I accomplished everything that I had went out to do in record time. Like I have um, no problem admitting the fact that me at the level that I was with one cigar, two SKUs, blew up the way that it did, and the attention that it got. It was fantastic, right? And I just took all that in a positive way, say, man, you know, you did something really cool. It just doesn't make sense to continue because of this FDA stuff. So let me just, you know, pull the plug, and we'll see what happens, right? And the reaction that people had, like you telling me the story of you, that was everything to me. I mean, that made me feel fantastic, because on one hand, if it would have been like, oh, you know, cool, like whatever, like who, you know, or you know, whatever, it was just there was a lot of, you know, people, same thing, kind of upset about the FDA thing. You know, a lot of other your cigar media kind of picked it up and say, hey, here's another company that, you know, cigar industry, or I'm sorry, the FDA is hurting the cigar industry. You know, messages from Glenn Loop at CRA, you know, messages from just people all over the industry. I was like, wow, you know, that is really, really cool. So I never skipped a beat, man. It was fun, and it was over. And I got to do the Gary Layden show in Atlanta with Coop at the end of that, which I thought was really neat. Um, and that was it. And the messages for months and months and months after, like, hey, do you have any more of those? I'd love to buy some. Stores, you know. And then when we made the switch, when I actually took the job with Roma, the amount of people that knew or would say, hey, I'm smoking a Voyage right now, like, oh my, like, I've never met you, you know, that's really awesome, you know. So that in itself was worth it, right? If that makes any sense. It's like, hey man, I did something cool, you know. I didn't fuck up, right? Or I didn't you know what I'm saying? It was just like,
Yeah.
and so no, man, I really had no regrets. I mean, it was a fun time. It was really, really cool. And again, the people, the relationships that I got to make just in that first year and a half, of being out, you know, I had been working on that project for like almost 2 years before it had come out. You know, just gave me a lot of respect for the industry, how it works, how the struggles that retailers go through, the things retailers need, want, how they operate, what the end customer looks for, wants, how they react to things, how they like, you know. And it was, I'm telling you, man, I never had that sad, upset feeling. It was just, it's like, you know, it's over. And, you know, having, you know, my wife has my back regardless or whatever. So she's like, you're good? I'm like, yeah, but you know, she's like, you know, you did it. You know, most people never even attempt their dream, right? So just to see
Absolutely.
that I had that even mild success was enough for me to be comfortable with giving it up. So
Danny,
sorry, I ramble.
no, not at all. As you know, I'm a huge baseball fan. I'm also, and speaking of movies, we're talking about movies in the late '80s, early '90s. So Field of Dreams is like my favorite movie of all time.
Love that movie.
So you're familiar with it. Okay, so Burt Lancaster's character, Moonlight Graham. And Kevin Costner says to him, most people, most people would never get as close to the dream as you did and not touch it, and they would consider that a tragedy. You actually lived it. And like, and he turns to me, he says, now son, if I had only been able to be a doctor for 5 minutes, now that would have been a tragedy.
Right.
So he had incredible closure for his life's decision, and it sounds like you had very similar closure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was the same thing. It was like I got to kind of say goodbye, and the friends that I made out of it, and that yeah, I guess closure was a really good way. I mean, apparently it didn't close all the way, right? Or it wasn't locked.
It wasn't locked. Yeah.
Um,
the peace you had, though, it's shocking.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting this.
Well, I mean, you got to remember, and I don't know if you remember or knew, it wasn't my only source of income, right? So it wasn't like hey, I gotta shut this down, and I gotta go work at Safeway or something, right?
Right.
So, and if anything, the piece may have come from I was getting so busy with events that it was actually like interfering with my real job a bit. But I wasn't big enough to leave that job. And if anybody's ever lived up north or in Maryland, it's a very expensive state to live in, right? So, I was just like, I was totally okay with it. But even that necessarily didn't last long, as I don't know, a couple months later, I ended up making the next transition, or the next phase of the voyage for me in the cigar industry, right? So yeah, that's fun. I don't think I've ever really talked about this like this to anybody, so this is pretty cool. Yeah, I never really had any hangups, like no regrets on anything.
That's beautiful, Danny. Like I said, not expecting that at all, and I hope that whatever, because I know that my life will be filled with disappointments and hard decisions, and I hope that I can handle them nearly with the quarter of the class that you can. So lesson learned here on ELOSOFUMARTAKES take 47. We'll go down into your next step in the cigar industry here in a little bit, but I want to stay with the Baracoa for just a little bit longer here. So 2.0 is coming right now. Were you really, now kudos to your wife for telling you not to sell it, by the way. If she wants to give me the winning lotto tickets number later, that'd be fantastic. I'll take them from her. But that being said, when you became the free agent, for so to speak, a couple months back and everything, were you looking at other opportunities within the cigar industry? Was this always the plan? What kind of finally made the push, I guess, to go?
No, I mean, to be 100% transparent, it wasn't a real plan. I mean, the FDA announcement again came in my last week at Roma, right? So up until that last week, it wasn't necessarily the plan. It did spark a conversation, with my wife and I, of like, hey, it's a possibility. We could probably do that again. We're like, okay, but at the same time, we were, dealing with kids with virtual school, and, we were worrying about real life stuff at the time. And then no other job offers or anything like that. Up until that last week, which I thought was funny. I was still at my last week, and immediately the messages and calls started coming, which was another great feeling, right? So no, I mean, it came fairly quickly to start, looking into it, but no, I think it was just time for us also, to kind of come get back home to Florida. And I know it's worked out, right? So we're doing it.
Awesome. So what? Okay, so the company name's the same. You've been throwing the name the Voyage out again, so there's going to be the Voyage 2.0, so to speak.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, what else is the same? Or I mean, like you said, there wasn't much more than those two things, but what else is the same as with this next iteration of the company?
What else is the same? Not not a whole lot. I mean, the logos are the same and stuff like that. I have changed factories. The blend is the same ish, right? Which was great because of COVID and Corona. Flights to DR were not super easy. Also, with the kids in school like that right now, it just wasn't the best time. So for me to be able to take that original blend that we'd come up with, and say, hey, here are the parts of what I need to do. And then Henderson Ventura being able to take that and uh, make different iterations of samples for me, and then just me get them in a couple days, and us going back and forth and Zoom meetings and stuff like that. Um, it worked out. Now, I will tell anyone that unless you already know what your blend needs to be, you need to be at the factory. But I knew I was going to work with Toro. I knew I knew the age of his Corojo. I knew, again, knowing because I in talks with him, with the factory, I knew that they would be able to do it justice and right. Um, they they said, hey, let us try this and let's figure it out.
Okay.
So um, so yeah, I kind of moved into like, hey, here are the samples, right? So um, and I was immediately blown away by construction. I, Again, taste and flavor is all subjective, um, but and it's worked out. And I'm sure we'll get into this a little later. But as far as what's the same and different, pretty much all different now. Before I was doing a lot. I was doing basically everything out of my house, and now we are not renovating, but remodeling a warehouse space, and getting shelving, and it's just going to be a lot bigger this time than it was the first time. I've learned a lot, right? There was a huge learning curve over the last 3 years, and there's a lot of really really good things that I learned, on my way to where I'm at right now.
Yeah. So yeah, just take this back just one step here. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
sure.
that was actually one thing I mentioned earlier, how you like, I wasn't mad at you when you called it quits. I was upset because I love La Aurora, and I loved the original Voyage. So I mean, I was upset, but then I was simultaneously not when I found out who you were working for. But
Right.
really quickly to that first point, was there something prohibiting you from going back to La Aurora? Did they were there certain like legal aspects of it you didn't want to go back? There just wasn't an open door, or like why? What was the process there, and why did you ultimately decide not to necessarily go back to them?
No, I think it was a a let me start off by saying that Manuel and Noah from La Aurora is one of the most like genuine, good-hearted people in the industry. And I don't know if he's watching; he's probably sleeping. But um, I just genuinely love that guy. He is such a loving, awesome person, and was always great to me every time I saw him. Um, but I just felt that since my kind of evolution in the cigar industry had changed a bit, that I understood the process on the factory side better. Um, and where La Aurora is a massive company compared to Tabacalera, William Ventura, I just loved the stuff that was coming out of that factory. There, if you just kind of take a look around with ADV like you're smoking there, They make a lot of Room 101 products that I just really like. I mean, the farce that was on CA's top 25 this year comes from that factory. They also had another cigar, another Caldwell cigar that came out of that factory on the top 25 of CA. And then just continuing seeing these kind of higher ratings, seeing their packaging, smoking their cigars. You know, there's, I'm sure everyone has at some point has seen Ronnie from Secreto up in Michigan. He basically shoved the ADV Blue, you know, in my mouth when I got there. He's like, "Bro, this is great. You got to try it." Right? It's like, "All right, dude, come down." Right. So,
Shout out to Ronnie, who supplied my cigar tonight, by the way. So real quick pause. I asked you, I said, "Hey, we're in a unique situation here.
right.
What do you want me to smoke tonight?" And you said, "Well, hey, if you've got it," I think I said, "As a matter of fact, I do." Ronnie gifted me. I'm smoking it tonight. I'm the Queen's Pearls, the Toro size,
which is kind of new to them. It's relatively new this year for them.
I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So shout out to Ronnie. Thank you very much for the cigar. And
Habibi.
What's that?
You got to call him Habibi. You call him Habibi.
Habibi?
He loves it. Yeah, he's a.
I feel like you're setting me up here, Danny.
No, 100%. He's Habibi. It's Chaldean, so you call him Habibi.
So yeah, I mean, and like I said, simultaneously, I was actually really, really excited to see that you were kind of like turning over a completely new identity. I think it really does separate, like you said, nothing against La Aurora, and I wasn't necessarily, I didn't assume anything had been bad. I was just interested in that process.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely, you definitely have that separation of, you know, version 1.0 versus 2.0. And I love the stuff that they're coming out with as well. So I was really excited to see that, and a truly unique group of people and the cigars that are coming out and the tobacco that's being used and everything. So what ultimately led you there? Like you said, you were kind of looking at the trends. You were looking at what they were putting out. I mean, did you have relationships with William or excuse me, Henderson, or what, you know, what ultimately led to this decision to go with them?
What's funny is we had heard a lot about each other, mainly through Ronnie at Secreto in Michigan, which is a dear friend of mine. But also, you know, I'd heard great things from Matt Booth about this factory, and he in turn, you know, had said really, you know, good things about me to Henderson. Also, so our first conversation lasted, I don't know, an hour and a half. He, you know, kind of started. I was like, man, I don't know what you've done, but all I hear is, you know, really good things about you, right? So, which is really cool because, you know, not that you really care what people think, but you know, if someone is going to think something, let it be a positive thing, right? So, you know, just to hear that was really neat. So, again, I had gotten offers from factories also. You know, it's like, hey, if you're going to come back out, we'd love to produce your cigar.
Oh wow!
And
That's flattering.
multiple, yeah, 100%. And I will never ever dismiss that. Like, as small, you know, from small ones to much bigger factories to guys that are you know, equally as popular, from Nicaragua to Honduras and even back in DR. You know, I just took a step back, like, wow, what a difference. Because the reason why it took me almost 2 years to come out with Voyage first time is because I was looking for a factory that would really work with me, and not necessarily just kind of give me something off the shelf, right? And I think just from our initial conversation, Henderson and I was like, man, this we just kind of clicked and it works, and he understands what I'm looking to do, and he understands, you know, where I want to take this, and he's also understands, you know, that I am still learning. You know, we typically all should still be learning, but you know, I'm going to take another bigger step into this factory side and you know, blending side, you know, kind of marketing side, and we're just very aligned. I mean, even if you look at the names of the ADV cigars, they're they're explorers, right? There's the Explorer, there's, the King's Gold, Navigator, so it's almost like the Voyage just kind of fit into the same even marketing style that he was, him and his partner are going after. So a lot of it just really, really made sense. Now that said, if he would have sent me samples and they would have been horrific, then maybe we work with it, or maybe I go somewhere else. 100%. I'm not.
Back to the
But
drawing board.
yeah, back to the drawing board. But it worked, man, and I, again, I only, even in all the events I've done, I really only ever talk about quality and construction and all that. Flavor again is up to, or is subjective, right, to the person smoking. So that would really impress me. And then obviously I just loved it. So again, meetings going back and forth and FedEx, right? So it was great. Now the next kind of steps of everything that would be coming out, obviously there's gonna be a lot more trips and all that stuff's already planned out, right? So we're excited to be working together with them and their brand new factory. They had a smaller factory, and now they're a factory that is doing a little over 2 million, or they can produce a little over 2 million cigars a year.
Yeah, I mean their capacity has grown so much, and the brands that they've worked with are like some of my favorites. To what Tony does with La Barba, Caldwell puts out some incredible cigars. I'm a big fan of Matt's stuff. I've got two booth cigars, depending on how long we go tonight. I've got the Farce Maduro and the Doomsayer lined up. Really enjoying this Queen's Pearls. Like, so it's. Have you smoked this yet?
It's funny, I have them there. I haven't smoked it. I haven't smoked that yet. I did smoke the ADV Blue today, but those are all on my list. I have them for sure.
I've had the blue before, and that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I agree. Like I've really enjoyed the stuff that they're doing in their factory. It's just it really hits my palate and everything. Now, so it's interesting you talk about your growth, and I said we're going to talk about your journey here in just a little bit, but just to kind of segue for a second, you worked with obviously the Dominican Republic at La Aurora. Then you go and work with a company that's based out of Nicaragua, so you had a lot of work there as well. Was there ever any consideration to go to Nicaragua for a factory, or maybe even Nicasueño itself, or was it always back to the DR for you?
No, I mean, for sure. I was actually offered by a factory that was in Nicaragua. The decision just again was just kind of set in that talk with Henderson, that honestly, if Henderson would have been in Nicaragua, I would have worked with him there. It wasn't necessarily that I picked DR over Nicaragua. It's just that,
or over Honduras. We don't want to leave them out. So
no, of course.
But I was just going off your experience, so I'm not trying to leave anyone out of Honduras out. So just covering my bases here.
No, for sure. But thankfully, when I kind of so this conversation goes great with Henderson, great. But even sitting back and looking at logistics of getting to the factory in DR versus getting to the factories in Nicaragua, I can, even though right now because of COVID, like for me to fly from Tampa there, I'd have to like go to South Carolina for 12 hours and then fly back down to Miami and then fly to DR. So I just drive to Miami and then fly to DR. I can be there in a few hours, and fly into Santiago, which is not very far from the factory. And then, we're working great. Or as opposed to, Nicaragua, there are people that I know very close. We both know that I've been trying to get back to Nicaragua this entire year
and can't,
and cannot. Right. So, even that was like, well, that's probably not a good look. Right. The other thing is, I already have relationships with with the band makers. I have relationship with the box factories in DR. So there was just a lot of things that I was like, well, I love all the factories in Nicaragua. I loved, working for a Nicaraguan factory. my assumption is there will be a blend at some point that would come out of Nicaragua, hopefully, in time. The difference, if anyone doesn't know, if you're watching this show, I'm assuming you know, but you have to like fly into Managua in Nicaragua, and depending on what time of the day, you may either have to stay in Managua for the night, or either way, you got a 3-hour drive to Esteli, right? So I mean, that right there can kill a day and a half of being in Nicaragua, and then wherever you stay. That was it, but it wasn't necessarily, I'm picking DR over anywhere else. It just happened to be that it worked out for all of us. So that was it. But yeah.
So the kind of going to you had mentioned that the logo is staying the same. So is the logo you had mentioned in relationships with the label makers and box factories and stuff? So is the Voyage going to look the same? Is the label and everything, or is it is it going to have a new, fresh, updated look?
What's funny is I had kind of I talked about redoing it, and there was from kind of close friends or my circle of people that I would brainstorm with or bounce stuff off of. There was pushback. They're like, no, leave it. It's classic. It's it's beautiful. It's going to bring it back. And then in my head is like, well, how do I get someone to distinguish an OG version versus now? One, there's probably not a lot of originals out there right now, even though there's been a lot of pictures recently, people bringing it back up, which is really cool. But I had also kind of envisioned different sizes. So that'll be your biggest tell, is I'm not making the same sizes as I did originally.
Okay.
Just kind of, again, the evolution, my palate has changed. The things I like have changed. What I've learned about the market and what the market likes is obviously now a little more updated in my head. Right. And, not that I would make a cigar or make a product that the market, well, the market likes these 7x70s, so I'm going to make 7x70s. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not going to be, why am I swimming upstream, right? I'm not going to make all Lanceros, right? and stuff like that. So,
much to Coop's delight. So,
yeah. And look, I like a Lancero as much as the next guy, but obviously, I also know it's not a viable, business thing. But so that'll be the biggest thing is the sizes different. It'll start out with 3 different sizes SKUs, and I still may update the box, but I kind of like the old box. So we'll see. Maybe maybe I just update whatever comes out next. But I really like. I know. I just like the old artwork and stuff.
So I mean, are you allowed to tell us what sizes you're going to be coming out with?
Oh yeah. I could check with my boss. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So what I'm smoking right now is the last test blend of the Toro. So this is a 6x54 Toro, which originally was a 5.5x54 Toro, which even it's funny, even at the time I was like, it's kind of short for a Toro, but like they say in Spanish, like ya metí la pata, right? I was like, well, like I'd liked it when it came out, and then just kind of as I was going through, it was like man, I should have made that 6-inch. But I still liked it. And then there was a 5x50 Robusto. So now it'll be a 6x54 Toro, a 5.25x52 Robusto Extra, and I call it. I've smoked a cigar with that size, and it was perfect. Like 5x50 is a kind of like traditional Robusto, but I always like just wanted a little bigger, a little more, like barely. So, when Henderson and I kind of went back and forth, I said, what do you think about, let's try it in this size.
5.25 by what you said? I'm sorry.
By 52.
So if I'm not mistaken, that's the same Vitola size as the Grand Robusto. No, it's not. Never mind. That's a 54 gauge. Sorry. I
That's all right.
apologize. For
No, that's all right.
La Barba has a Grand Robusta that's around the similar size, but a different range.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of I just like that a little longer, but also it's got, I'm doing a 5x46 Corona. And that's, that one's for the grown and sexy, right? That one's for the cigar nerds. That one's for us, right? That appreciate that little 46 ring gauge.
I was gonna say, sign me up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And honestly, that one's probably gonna be for me. I love it. So those would be the three sizes to start. And then with what come there will be a second voyage blend that will have those same three sizes to start. But that'll be a little bit down the road, not too much further down the road from when this launches, but so that's kind of the plan. And then we're working on the third brand right now. So yeah, not a lot of details on that because I just don't have it all. It's on paper, but we're working it out. So we'll see.
So like what's the plan? So first of all, when's Voyage 2.0 coming out? Like when can we expect to see it?
So if everything goes right, if anyone's ever going to do this, the box factory is the one that can get you. Bands can get done pretty quick. Cigars will get made and age and should be good. The boxes are the part that is the wild card in it. It should be third to fourth week of January.
Oh, okay. So really quick. All right.
Yeah. What's funny, it sounds quick to you. For me, it's like, let's go. So yeah. And can't talk too much, but I have a couple stores that are looking for the a launch in their certain areas, which is even more humbling, to me. I don't take any of that stuff for granted. And someone wants to reach out and even just to have a conversation about my cigar and bringing it in, and if it ultimately doesn't work out, it's all timing. It'll work. So I don't get offended that way. But the fact to have the interest there and people just wanting to support, and I have a list of my guys, right, my retail stores, like my guys that I've stayed in constant communication with over the last 3 months that I've been in Florida, and the support that I've gotten from the friends and retailers that I've made in this industry, it's invaluable. I don't even know how to explain it. It's crazy, right? So now I feel that pressure because they're hey, we're going to support you. People are sharing the picture. The retailers, right? So now the pressure's on me to give them something they can sell, right? To give them a good product that isn't just going to be a flash in the pan on social media. Which, hey, that's exactly what's going to happen at the beginning. I completely get it. But is the blend, the size, the construction, the cost viable to make it a real substantial product on someone's shelf, right? And I think we've nailed it. And I the idea is to support those guys the same way I've done for the last 3 years, and the way they're trying to support me now, and then just pay it back to them again as we move forward. And I honestly, I can't wait. I really can't wait. It's gonna be exciting. Now, talking about winter and traveling up north and stuff like that. January sucks, right? But I think it's a great way to kind of start 2021 and really hit the ground running. And it's gonna be a fun year. It's really gonna be fun. Man. We have a lot of really cool things planned, and who knows? I mean, the way this coronavirus thing has changed a lot of the way stores order and the way people order, and there's a time, the time has come for how do I say it, for the way business is done. I mean, there was just a huge announcement a couple of days ago with like Miami Cigar, right? Like kind of letting all the is that the way things are going, these in-house type of deals. A lot of people don't realize, like, to do that, you have to be on top of your game at all time over the phone, and do it without brokers or reps. So um, I don't know. There's just a lot of really cool things kind of happening and in the works. So yeah, January. So there's a lot of. It's funny. There's a lot of work. You know, there's a lot of stuff you don't see necessarily every day, but there's a lot of work that's going to go into making sure I'm ready for January. So
Yeah, I mean yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth when you talk about Miami. You like that. That's a well-established brand. I mean, I mean, the humbling popularity that you've experienced, from when you first started, and now even with the comeback, is great. But you're still building a brand. That's
yeah.
that's. But the great thing is you have that experience of building your own brand once the first time,
Mhm.
and then also helping build another, very popular brand as well in the quote unquote untraditional way. Again, we're going to get into that in just a little bit, but
Sure.
of reps and brokers having different responsibilities and stuff. So I did want to ask this question because I had Alec and Bradley Rubin on last week, and we were talking about, because it's only been 3 years since they had their launch, right?
Right.
And it's still fresh in their mind, and so I was curious. This is kind of an uh, a personal and emotional question, which is, what does that unboxing feel like? That first time when you open up that shipping box and you see the Voyage
Yeah.
cigar box, and now it's going to be the second time around. This is product that's going to go on someone's shelf. Someone's going to buy this.
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
Oh man, what's funny is when I got that first case delivered, my wife actually I was at my office, and my wife had, I don't know why she was home. She was, I don't know. Anyway, she was home, and she's like, I couldn't wait. She opened it up, and she's like, I'm not gonna send you pictures because I want you to see this. But even she was just like, there was just nothing to say, right? It was just, and what's the crazier thing, we were just looking at pictures today of when I was just like looking at that first box, just like, and it was just really neat. And thankfully with her advice, like I just took a second and just looked at what we had done, um, and honestly, it's funny. It's like at that point, it could have stopped right there, right? It could have stopped right there for me, and I would have just been on the moon of happy and excitement that this project that we'd kind of just willed into existence was sitting there in front of me in my hands. So it was fun, man. And I can imagine that, and anyone that's done it, gets that same feeling. It's like, there it is. Now, fairly quickly, those cigars had to get out of there. They had to go from me to Vegas. It was a crazy. I got those on a Friday, and the trade show was like Monday, and I had to. Oh, it was ridiculous. So I took my 5 minutes. It was cool. I popped one open, did some cool pictures, and then it was just like, all right, let's go. Like, time to keep going. So, but definitely fun.
Terrific.
Dude, you're making me like relive my like it's good times, man. I love it. Went from Home Alone and Goonies to I don't know.
So, like I said, it's a blast to the past, and we're gonna fold time back
Yeah,
on side of itself here. So, so again, Danny, thank you for going down memory lane a little bit with this, but and taking us into the future as well. This is really exciting. I
sure.
know that, we've got a great audience tonight that's tuning in and commenting and really excited along with you and with myself. And so this is exactly what you wanted, and
Yeah,
and it's only going to get better from here. I know it, and you know it, and it certainly is exciting. So, um,
thank you.
the show's not over, folks. We've got a whole part of Danny's journey that we're going to relive here, but we've got to take a quick break here and do a little bit of more fun. So this is our One Must Go segment. Now, as always, it's brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. So Danny, it's been a while since you've been on my show. This is a newer segment, and so but it's been around for a little over 6 months now, and been really exciting. And so what I do is I try to take this and typically mold it around my guests. But I kind of wanted to took a different approach today, and I wanted to mold it around the time in history that we're in. So we just wrapped up an election, an historic election. We're in the middle of holiday season. So I am combining two of these things to bring us the world of debates. Okay. So the idea is
right.
I'm going to give you three debates, and one has to go. And I'm going to join you in.
Okay.
So I mean, you're not only on the hot seat by yourself. Okay. So
Okay.
there is some real controversial things around the holidays. There is there are hot ticket debates that happen during this time of year that, I mean, they almost like separate families, right? I mean, they split families up, and it can be carnage because people hold their traditions so dear. And so it becomes a really hot ticket debate. So the first debate is, do you open your presents on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve? And I'll let you answer these questions too in a second, but that's
Sure.
debate number one: Christmas Day presents or Christmas Eve presents.
Okay.
It's a debate in my own household, so this
Yeah.
is a little close to the chest for me. The second one is food oriented. So what do holiday dinners consist of? Is it turkey or ham?
Okay.
And then decorations. This one's really big, especially now with 2020 just throwing everybody into a complete clusterfuck.
Right.
Before Christmas decorations, before Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving? So those
Nice.
are the three debates. Now, one, you just got to say, you know what, fuck it, it's gone. I'll participate and
Right.
get my hands dirty in the other two, but the other one I just want to get rid of for the rest of my life. I never have to mess with it again.
Sure. The turkey and ham needs to go.
Okay.
And the reason is, and I'll fight anybody that argues with me, is no one actually likes turkey. Like, the only day unless it's sliced in a sandwich, okay. But like, other than Thanksgiving, when are you making turkey? So get out of here with that. The ham, I love, especially you do like a pineapple brown sugar ham. It's good for dinner. It's good with breakfast the next day. You fry it with your fried eggs. So that debate needs to go because turkey sucks.
Fair
And
enough.
if your family member's a turkey, I apologize if I offend you.
It's you didn't offend me, Day. It's funny that you say that because I grew up with turkey twice a year in my household, and it was Thanksgiving, but it was also Christmas, which is weird to most people. I did it on both holidays.
Yeah.
Um, and but now recently we did turkey this year, but the most recently what my challenge has been is I take on a different protein. So like my next quest is goose. I want to take on a goose. I want to see what I
There you
can
go.
do with that. Because I've had it before. It's actually really good. I love
Right.
duck. Duck's really good
Yeah.
too.
I love
Obviously
duck. I've never had
beef.
goose though.
It's very similar. And at least in my opinion, in the way that I had it was prepared, it was really, I found it to be really good. A lot better than, a lot more flavorful than chicken, a lot more flavorful, obviously more flavorful than turkey, as we were talking about a moment ago. But that's interesting. Okay, so the remaining two debates. So you got to kick out turkey. So okay, so we got to answer the questions now. Okay, so do
Mhm.
you open your presents Christmas Eve or Christmas Day?
So a little of both. So we actually will allow the kids one pre-selected that we select gift on Christmas Eve, which is typically, and they haven't caught on yet, but it's typically Christmas PJs, right? So we'll all have like matching Christmas PJs.
There you go.
So they feel like they're opening, they get new PJs, which they'll wear that night, and then they will be in Christmas morning for pictures. So, and I take zero credit for that idea. As for me, I would just like to give my kids the gifts the day I buy them and just say, hey, here's your Christmas present, because I'm terrible at wrapping it and leaving it there. I'm like, just take it. So, and then, yeah, the rest of the gifts on Christmas Day. So that was something my wife came up with. I'm like, that's good. It feeds their need to get something the night before, and then but we have it all Christmas Day. Now, Christmas Eve dinner for us is bigger than Christmas Day dinner.
That's how a lot of people are.
Usually,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, to wrangle the kids, like, no, put your scooter, your brand new bike away, whatever. It's time for dinner. Like, no, I want to play my new Xbox or whatever, right? Um, so anyway, that's just to add on
Gosh,
to.
sounds like I need to open up presents at the Vazquez household. New bikes and Xboxes and heck yeah,
Got a
sign
lot
me
of
up.
kids, dude.
Um, uh, okay, so um, I'm a Christmas Day opener. My wife is German, so and most of Europe actually does Christmas Eve. Same thing with dinner. It's a Christmas Eve dinner, and as opposed. So we've um, I definitely will have adopted the Christmas Eve dinner part. But I refuse. Christmas morning gifts are just something she gave in to me. But we do open up
Right.
one present before on Christmas
Yeah.
Eve to honor her. So that one's a little too personal. I couldn't kick that one out. I think I'll get to my choice here in a second. But decoration. So when do you decorate? Is it before? Are you one of these Halloween people and then like Halloween to Christmas, or do you go after Thanksgiving?
No, typically, we put up the tree Thanksgiving Day. So after dinner, we'll put up the tree, and then usually it's just put up the tree, and then we will decorate like the next day. So you know the the tree going up, um, Thanksgiving Day is kind of a tradition for us. Now it's a little different here, in Florida. I mean, you could still go buy a live tree, but up north, I guess I've never seen it. Anyway, we used to go cut down our own Christmas tree, which was like a huge thing for us, right? So we would, kind of just take that day, and then you go out to these tree farms, and they have all the crap for people to buy, and the hot chocolate and the cookies and stuff for the kids. So we'd make it a whole day, and then we'd cut down our own tree, uh, which I
That's
kind of miss
awesome.
a little bit. Yeah, yeah, it
I've
was
always
fun.
dreamed about doing that. I've had a fake tree my entire life.
Oh yeah. Mm. Now, dude, I'll tell you, it does make it a lot easier, and but especially our first Christmas tree that I cut down. I didn't necessarily measure accurately. We had 10-foot ceilings, and we got a 12-foot tree that we figured out was 12 feet once we got in the house. So, uh, well, almost in the house. That was funny.
So what
But
did you do? Cut a couple feet off the bottom? Like how'd you do this? How'd you make it work?
well, they do it so well that you only have enough to go into that tree stand. So one, we had to get a different tree stand, and then we asked for some help, and that we cut parts of the top off, and then we ended up having to change the the top of the tree to like a snowman head that year, which we have now kept. So that was fun. And then one year it was the perfect height, but man, it was wide. I didn't realize how wide it was until we put it into the living room. I mean, it was it was 7, 8 feet. Like, it was massive. Where it was like the tree, and then once you put the gifts in, it took over the living room.
You say
We
you
ended up
didn't have a
moving it.
living room.
Yeah, for a few months there was no living room. Like, hey, nobody can sit in here. So yeah. So that was fun. So yeah, that's definitely how we do it. Is after Thanksgiving.
This is absolutely without a question, without a doubt, the thing that irritates me the most about the holidays. And it has to stay because I will stand strong on the wall. It is after Thanksgiving decorating. You do
Yeah.
not decorate for Christmas until after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's a holiday too, guys. It doesn't go from Halloween to Christmas. And by the same token, I also get irritated by Oktoberfest beer showing up in late July. Also irritates the crap out of me, but that's something that is just a hotly contested debate for me.
Yeah.
My wife, who loves Christmas more than anything else in this world, including myself, maybe she loves my boys probably more, but I mean, it's my
It's a
boys,
close.
Christmas, and then
They're
me.
close.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Close
I'm
second. Yeah.
third place. Hey, listen, I made the podium. I'm happy. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Sure.
But she even is post Thanksgiving, so
Yeah.
that is that I go by her on that. So she's obviously right. So we'll that's the right answer for that. So the people that are like, and I love the people this year that are like using 2020 and the clusterfuck that it is as the excuse, like, oh, 2020, who cares? Like, listen, if that was your excuse, then you could have done it in September. So
Right.
like, stop it.
Right.
Just you're on this other side of the debate, which is wrong, and that's fine. So
Yeah. Somebody has to be wrong for me to be right. Somebody has to be wrong. Well, you know what's funny, that for us as a family, and we've never discussed it, it just kind of happened, is Halloween is actually our favorite holiday. We all just get to, dress stupid, do whatever we want. And, this year was weird, but, go get the candy. We love giving the candy out, doing the bonfires on the driveway, people coming by and throwing, candy at people. And, so I wish Halloween was like a week longer or whatever. So I'm like, I'm not really in a rush to get into all the other holidays, because I'd love for Halloween to kind of stick around a little longer.
Halloween in our neighborhood is a little bit of a downer.
Oh,
It's really sad. We don't really get many trick or treaters and stuff, so we've always been on the lookout. Like we were gonna join. I know you know Andy Yaffe, who's with McAuliffe now. He actually had a really great Halloween tradition. And then he moved, and we were gonna join him that year, and then he moved, and I was like, dang it.
oh,
So it sounds like we're just gonna go to Tampa for and just have
yeah.
Halloween with the Vazquez family. So that sounds like what's gonna happen next year.
Sounds great.
I'm inviting myself. But
Yeah.
so I think I'm with you, Danny, on this debate. Like, I think the turkey and ham thing just has to go. Like, I think we just need to, like, settle once and for all, like, what we do turkey out of tradition, and then that's what it is. But like, I mean, like, the debate just needs to, just go, because the other two are just more hotly debatable, and there's also very, very strong passions on both sides for it.
Right.
So I I'll go with that. So I appreciate you participating in this week's One Must Go. So I'm really anxious to hear from. We've already had a couple people chime in on this. I'm really anxious to hear your traditions, guys. You hang up Christmas decorations before or after Thanksgiving? The answer is after, but if you do it before, that's fine. Hey, listen, everyone's entitled to their wrong opinion. Turkey or ham, or Christmas Day or Christmas Eve presents. So roll those answers in. I'm really excited to hear that. And as always, the One Must Go is brought to you by United Cigars. It's featuring featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. So bringing into the next subject here, Danny. So what this is also relatively new too, is I've started asking my guests each week. We are now featuring a charity or nonprofit of my guest choice that we are trying to raise awareness for, raise money for. And it's something I started on my birthday this year, which was late October. And so it's just gone so incredibly well. We've learned so many great stories about so many great organizations, and this week is going to be no different. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about it, but I want to introduce it. You chose Pencils of Promise, which was founded by Adam Braun, and has a great story about this. He, was traveling abroad in India, and he offered a young child, like, what can I give you that, what is the most important thing that I could give you in the world? And the child responds with a simple one-word request, and he says, a pencil. And so Adam reaches into his backpack and supposedly gives him the pencil, and in this child's eyes, he saw a world of possibility open up. And he realized what this was his aha moment, and Pencils of Promise was born. And they now are building schools and really bringing education to the developing world through this charity, and just a fabulous organization. So I'm really excited to hear your thoughts, Dane. Why did you choose this? Why is this important to you, and why should people donate?
Yeah. So this is actually something I'd heard about years ago from a guy that a lot of us know, called Gary Vaynerchuk, that actually, at the time, I'm not sure if he's still there, sat on the board of Pencils of Promise. And I heard him talk about, what, obviously the organization, why he believed in it, and having developing countries and giving that education isn't necessarily just to educate the kids, so that they can kind of continue what they're doing in these developing countries, but it's to make it develop the right way, right? So,
Hmm.
education obviously leads to, or the lack of education obviously leads to, health issues and poverty and things in this country. So, when I got turned on to it, I was like, man, that just makes, complete sense. I again, like you talk, we both have kids, and it's kind of, I think about them in that aspect of, what if they were in this position where, hey, it's just, you need to go figure it out. I don't know, and we do our best to teach, but chances are, if I'm in one of these countries, I don't have a lot I can teach either, right? So, um, it's one of those organizations kind of flies under the radar. Not a lot of people have heard about it, but they're doing a lot of really good stuff. So it was just something I've always kind of kept an eye out of. We've um, in the past have helped, and I don't know. It just always seemed like something I wish I could do more with, right? So when you asked me that, I mean, I think you asked me, I'm like, I have to think about it. I'm like, what am I thinking about? I have the answer, and
Yeah.
I like immediately texted again. I guess maybe I just wasn't expecting you to ask me that. Um, so yeah, I know you posted the link, which is really cool. People can go on there and kind of see more about it, see what they're doing, see how they get help and get involved. And I mean, hey, let's be real. A lot of stuff can be fixed with money, right? So that's
Hmm.
kind of a really good way to help there and just help globally, right? Or
Hmm.
in something more around the world.
I mean, some staggering statistics that you find out about through Pencils of Promise, and the number that gets thrown around throughout the organization, and if you look at it through the website, everybody is 250 million children can't. 250 million children and of primary school age lack basic reading, writing, and math skills. And so, what does that actually translate to? So, what does that translate to? It translates to 75% of these children that are even getting some form of education after several years of education still can't read a single word. So, what kind of quality of education is that? If 75% of the developing world's educational system after several years in school are teaching children, and those children can't even read. And that leads to, if you want to think about this in terms of economics, this is another staggering thing that I learned through this. And they put it into so many different perspectives too, Danny. This is what I really liked about this organization is they attack education and they let you they showcase it in so many different ways, and they translate to the cost of 250 million children around the world not learning basic skills translates into an estimated loss to the global GDP of 129 billion dollars per year.
Yeah, that's staggering. Yeah,
That, think if there's like, okay, let's just boil that down to like, $1 billion each year going into the global economy, what that would do, let alone 129 billion.
yeah,
With proper education. I mean, we're not even talking about math. We're not talking about MBAs. We're not talking about
right.
PhDs. We're talking about simple,
Reading.
basic
Yeah,
skills, reading, right?
yeah, yeah,
That that is simply incredible. And they talk about, the lack of quality education leads to like health and sanitation issues, gender inequality, lack of qualified teachers, obviously, familial economic instability and infrastructural challenges. That's why these developing countries are developing countries is because and third world countries is because the lack of education, and it's sad to say, like it's 2020 and there are still authoritarian dictatorships in this world in existence because unfortunately because of the lack of education in those countries that are
right.
they're getting taken advantage of by these regimes. And so that's it's imperative that we continue to educate our future, and that and I can already hear some of the cynics starting like, what's wrong with the good old US of A? Why don't we, the
Oh, yeah.
education system here? you're absolutely right. And we should, donate and work on the educational system in the United States too. But this organization is a great place to start, because if we can make an imprint in the world, that we live in, especially in this industry where this is an international industry that we work in,
Right.
right?
Well, the cigars are made in, some developing countries, right? Or
Exactly.
countries that may be struggling with the same issues. Um, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, one of the other kind of big things that it really gets me is, and you'll see it on the website, is that 100% of what you donate goes, right? So it isn't a fraction or a part or 75 or 85. I mean,
Hmm.
what you donate goes to their project, which is, sometimes you don't know, right? Um, so that was another big thing to me.
And yeah, and they've talk about some. Like you said, 100% of the money goes. And look at the organizations that have bought into Pencils of Promise. I mean, these are world class organizations. 1-800-Flowers, Salesforce, Warby Parker. You want to talk bigger? How about Google, Chase, Goldman Sachs, Microsoft? These are world class corporate organizations that are buying into Pencils of Promise and giving their money to where 100% goes to the cause. Unbelievable pig, Danny. When I was reading more and more about this, I was so excited to be raising awareness for them and hopefully getting some money. And as always, everybody who's listening and watching, I am donating to a very small amount, because I got to spread this around and at least over the next year that I'll be doing this.
Sure.
I'm donating to every organization that's mentioned
Awesome.
um, on these shows. So I'm honored to do so, because I'm honored to help out the 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 issues and the organizations that matter most to my guests. Um, and so I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to donating some money to Pencils of Promise and to the education of the world. This is really exciting stuff. So as you mentioned, Danny, I did post the link inside the chat right now, so please consider donating. Also, if you go back to there is a hot button link on the LS Fumar Facebook page underneath this weekend's post about the announcement of today's show. You can simply donate there. We would love for you to consider donating to Pencils of Promise and supporting the cause of Danny's choice. So, Danny, thank you so much for bringing that to us today. That was really great.
No, thanks for raising awareness on your platform.
So going back to your journey here, Danny. So so we've been talking about 2.0, and we've kind of been dabbling a little bit in the past too and everything. But let's take it back even further, before the genesis of Baracoa Cigar Company version 1.0, right? So what transpired you to start your own cigar company? This is the dream. It's a dream that I would love to live too. If you
Right.
can't tell from some of my questions, what inspired you to chase this dream? Where did it all start?
Ignorance. No. So, just like a lot of guys that are in a cigar shop for way too long, you just start thinking like, oh, we could do this, right? And it initially it started with wanting to open a cigar lounge, which is a completely different world, right? And but fairly quickly I was like, you know what I actually like about the cigar lounge are obviously the cigars, and what would I put in there? And then you just start thinking, I was like, well, I'd like to have my own cigar, right? And then you kind of, like as a consumer, you kind of know that's a thing, but you don't really know how it works, and you don't, you know, because on one aspect, nobody really wants to tell you, what goes into it, because on another aspect, not a lot of people know what goes into it, right? Um, and the idea was, well, how how do I just get a cigar made for me, right? And you know, and I've talked about this before, but fairly quickly, I could have had a cigar a month later. You know, just get my tobacco permit, get my EIN, you know, get all that stuff done, and I could have got something off the shelf. I could have got bundle cigars and just put my band on it, and preach that until, you know, my head blew off, and hey, this is a great cigar, and knew nothing about it. But you know, the first question was like, man, if I found that out about this company, would I smoke that cigar? You know, if I found out that, hey, these are just kind of, you know, whatever extra stuff or whatever, you know, blend they would give me or they'd be willing to give me, that's what I came up with. I didn't want to do that. So then it was like, well, okay, how do I do this? Like, you know, so it literally just turned into, um, you know, at first, you know, talking to reps, and then, you know, them kind of pointing me in different directions, finding factories, cold calling factories, which is ultimately what happened at La Aurora. Just literally picking up the phone, say, hey, you know, this is what I want to do, you know, trying to sell myself. And I mean, it took a long time for me to really try to, or not try, but to get somewhere where I felt like, okay, I think I've cracked the kind of get in code here. You know, how do I take it to the next level, right? Um, because also, you know, it's not like I had any factory connections. I didn't have a box factory connection, and I had the band, you know, so it was like, yeah, okay, this is, you can get the cigars, but you know, how are you going to market them, right? And one of super dear friend, he came up with the well, we worked together on the design for the band and the boxes, Umberto, um, from Cigar Package Design out of Miami. He asked me the question when we kind of started this, is like, the question you have to is that you have to answer is why. Like, why should someone smoke your cigar? Why should a store buy your cigar? Why are you doing this? Why, you know, you have to answer the why. And once you get that, you know, you can kind of make sure that everything else is aligned to your why. And I mean, that changed my perspective of what I was trying to do immediately. And then, you know, took it to, no, you know, I want to blend that is mine. That, hey, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't alone myself in a factory and came up with the blend all alone. No, there was a lot of feedback going back and forth with Manuel, and, you know, talking about what I wanted, you know, versus what he, you know, obviously his wealth of information would give me, and going back and forth with that. Um, and then it took me to like, yeah, I need to take this, you know, and again, this was, like I mentioned earlier, this was kind of the upstart and the rise of the cigar social media, um, um, whatever entity at the time that really was almost non-existent. I mean, there was Cigar Cartel that at the time was probably sub 10,000 members, and maybe a few offshoots here, but there weren't, you know, a ton of Facebook groups at the time. I mean, hell, Coop didn't even have his own show at the time. Dojo was launching their app, and they had a huge kind of following, but it was kind of within their own thing, right? Not so much on Facebook and Instagram at the time. Um, so, you know, I was able to kind of watch the start of that evolution of, you know, obviously there was Reddit, right? But I don't necessarily consider Reddit the social media that we know now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on Reddit, but um, you know, I I just got it. You know, it's like, man, I'm super glad that I didn't go this easy route, because with social media, I would have been found out super quick, right? Like, I mean, people would have just realized, like, no, actually, you're buying that. I saw you over here buying that cigar from these people, and you're throwing your band on it, right? So that's kind of how it started, and then it was just, and I know I kind of glossed over a 2-year period, but you know, those are kind of all the things that you go through in learning something that I was super passionate about, but there the tools that we have now to, learn about any factory or any brand, it wasn't really it didn't really exist back then. There was the YouTube video that everyone has seen of like Rocky Patel's tour of the Placencia factory, the Fuente story. That's a phenomenal documentary about their family. And then like, Brian Glenn's like how to smoke a cigar video, right? That's over 1 million views. And then there was a lot of, I don't know, not crap, but there was a lot of like guys that are doing reviews, right? And
Still are. So
yeah,
a lot of people
but
doing it. Yeah.
yeah, there's well, no, now the numbers, forget about it, right? But back then there was a lot of just of guys that just, I don't know, maybe took themselves a little too serious, and their whatever their take on it was, and it's funny, at the time it was a little intimidating, but then you're just like, well, whatever, like who cares what that guy thinks? Focus on what you're working on. So that's kind of how the whole thing started with me, was just a passion that I'm gonna be honest, I took too far, right? And I say that ignorance as a joke, but I've said it before, like if I would have known now what I knew back then, I probably wouldn't have started it, right? If I would have known, if I would have had this mentality that, man, it's hard to get into shops, or it's hard to sit, talk someone into buying your product, or it's hard to, it's like, it isn't, there's a lot of travel, and you got to, all those things would have maybe psyched me out. But ultimately, the things that I didn't know, I wasn't necessarily concerned with. So it's almost like those
Ignorance is
things weren't
bliss
even,
kind of thing.
yeah, 100%, because those roadblocks that I may have set up for myself, again, just they didn't exist. So, all of a sudden, the Voyages and all these stores that I'd never even heard of, but because of like the work that I'd done on my side of the social media side, on going to events, on doing events, on hitting key markets, opened up a lot of stuff for me. And hey, it was, for a guy that had just launched and a rookie and knew nothing, I got a lot of success out of that, being on Cigar Dojo for, multiple episodes, being on, I can't, and I'm drawing a blank on the show Coop used to be on. But even Stogie Geeks, and, like even guys like Coop, like giving me a lot of love and recognition, and, the Save the Leaf stuff. And I was honestly I just felt blessed. And I was just, for me, it was like, well, let's just keep this going. We're going to be genuine people. We're going to be honest people. We're not going to take advantage, and everyone's going to know exactly what I'm dealing with and working on, which, anyone that follows me on social media, what my wife looks like, all my kids, when I go to the beach, when I'm having an issue. and
when your son Matthew was born, you documented the whole thing. The whole,
my goodness, man. Yeah.
Every step of the way.
Yeah. And that's just kind of how we are. I mean, that's part of our journey. That is part of our, voyage. And now, and I'm sure we'll get into it at some point, but, after I shut that down and I got with Roma, the education, the curve skyrocketed. Right. And those are the things that I say, like, man, if I'd have known that was that difficult with, client XYZ, I may have never gone to that store or to that client, but I never had those issues with that customer. Right. So, that was a really long-winded kind of answer, but there was just so much that, now looking back, could have went wrong. I just never really experienced it. It just flowed, and it worked, and I had reasonable expectations for, what I was putting out and what I was going to get back. And thankfully, for especially guys like you, it surpassed all those expectations, which may have been why I felt cool leaving it, and I wasn't, hanging off the ledge, because I was shutting down my company. It was great. It was a great time.
So a couple things to unpack there. So the first thing I got to ask is what was your why? You said you had to find your why. What was your why?
Yeah, I
What
mean,
ultimately became the why, I guess.
right. It's funny because the why, and we'll obviously we'll get into it, but the why is where the voyage name kind of came from. So where I was trying to unpack where I was trying to not unpack but pack, kind of my story into why, and I came up with this kind of feeling. It's just like, hey, I'm just a normal guy that has a super passion about this, and this is where I want to take it. This is what I want out of this. This is where I'm going. This is where I see myself headed. And at first, I still have kind of the original list of names and stuff, and Journey was on there, and Rite of Passage was on there, all this stuff, and literally woke up in the middle of the night and wrote the word voyage, the voyage, and went back to sleep. And I woke my wife up, and I was like, like earlier in the morning, I was like, we've got the name. And then it just all kind of rolled, and like, this is my voyage into the cigar industry. And this, and I wanted to accurately, document accurately. I wanted to document on social media, at least, what does it take? Like, what do you have to do? What does it work? That could a regular schmo like me make something work, not just on the branding side and the cigar side, but just create that brand or that product and that story, and have it all not only feel good and look good, but just be real and be authentic, and it just kind of all flowed, and that's exactly what happened with us, on that initial kind of voyage. Was, hey, this is what we want to do, and this is where we're heading, and we see our heading. And there was just like a lot of these kind of words of navigating, right, that would pop up, and then there's kind of where it clicked.
Orlando Perez, who's in our chat right now, said whenever anyone is in fear, the only way to get rid of it is to get into the fear. And I kind of commented on that a second ago. I go back to Will Smith, the actor. I saw him do this incredible talk one time on social media, no less. And he was talking about your the experience of skydiving. And he was saying,
Right.
how skydiving is always starts off as the thought of like you and your boys getting together, and it's always like the drunken night before, and you're like, yeah, let's go do this, like, and everything.
Right.
And like you're getting all jacked before, and then like right in that it's the journey, the voyage to that point where you've got your toes hanging over a perfect, the doorway of a perfectly working airplane, and you're about to jump out. And
Right.
then all that motion, all that jacked feeling, all that jazz feeling goes out the window, and it's nothing but fear. And then he says, on the other side of that fear is the freedom and joy and exhilaration that is indescribable. So it's on the other
Yeah.
side of fear is where you have to, you have to get to experience that kind of euphoria. And so it's I think that is, in a way, it's kind of really poignant in your story, Danny, because you talk about the voyage in his very literal term, and how the voyage had this incredible journey, and that ultimately became your why. It's pretty, it's pretty poetic, not to be too over dramatic about it, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's
no, I appreciate. I mean, and the thing with it is, like I mentioned, it's just because it's real, it's authentic, it's true, and I think that's why, I was able to connect with so many people, and still, and why the brand itself has so many followers and fans, and people that just love it. And when I meet people, you're meeting the same guy that posts pictures with his kids on Instagram, right? There isn't this overwhelming feeling on my end to make myself feel like, oh yeah, no, I'm a cigar guy. You know, I know things about cigars, and you know, you don't. Hey, this is an event. Here's why you should buy this cigar, and you should buy this cigar. It doesn't work for me in life. It doesn't work for me in this business, and especially in this industry, where, you know, in all the years that I've done, you know, all these events, um, hey, you know, how you doing? My name's whatever, Earl. Shout out to Earls. You know, tell me about your cigar. It's like, oh, well, yeah, you know, this is my, you know, my brand, or hey, you know, this is Roman Craft. We're from, you know, Nicaragua, or whatever. But, you know, Earl, where are you from? What do you smoke? What do you like? Do you come into this shop a lot? Yeah, have you heard of us? Have you heard of this? Talk to you. You know, I want to know about that person, because obviously he's at my event, or he's at the event, whatever. He's standing in front. He's a cigar smoker. He's going to buy something. So why am I going to stress this guy out about buying something? He's here. He's going to do it.
Right.
So I want to know about you. I want you to, and man, I just noticed how close my hands are getting to you.
I talk with my hands too,
wanna,
so it's fine.
yeah. You know, so, you know, all that, you know, authenticity, if it can be butted up with a great product, is just where it's at, right? So, you know, for me, it's it wasn't hard or anything, because I was just being me, right? And you and I've met. I'm the same, you know, I'm the same dude I was at, you know, the US event as I am here. And honestly, like, if I go into a shop that I don't know, for instance, you know, I went to this really cool lounge in Chicago, um, the Clayton. If anyone ever has an opportunity, that's all I'll say. Um, and I started asking, you know, guys asking me about, you know, what cigars I like, and I just kind of went in. I'm not here to drop my card on, hey, I'm this you know, nothing. And, you know, it's my buddies that are coming like, oh, he actually do. I'm like, you know, it's like, relax, like, you know, because then comes this, like, this pressure of like, oh, well, what about this? I'm like, hey man, you know, I just want to talk to you. You know, I just want to be, let's just be cool. And then, you know, we can get to cigars, sure, but, you know, that ultimately, I think, was or is what helps me kind of build these relationships with, um, you know, retailers, media, with, you know, fan friends. I feel really weird saying fans, got to be honest. But, you know, people that support
the end consumer, if we want to just put a label on it, right?
Yeah. And consumer sounds a little too general, though. It's like disrespect. I don't know. But anyway, so it's just, you know, and that's that whole voyage, my wife, you know, being part of it, bringing her to events, people meeting her, as just, you know, there isn't this, you know, me trying to take advantage of the situation or sell myself more. It's just, hey, let's hang out. Let's just be cool people. And that's really what I focus on. I've always focused on, period. And thankfully in this industry, that's very, you know, handshake. It's very relationship based. It's a lot of, you know, kind of who, you know, it works. You know, we're not just selling widgets, right?
Right.
And it's a very, very different industry than really anyone that I've ever been part of.
I have to say, Danny, that like that's something that the great ones do, is what you
There we
just
go.
described. And there's nothing wrong with doing it the way that you don't want to do it. Right.
Right.
There's a place for that. And there's people that are like that. And there's people that are successful with that model. And
Sure.
there's nothing wrong with that. But there's something very attractive and very investing in that attitude. And the word that I'm going to choose here, Danny, to describe you is authentic. You're an
Thank you.
authentic human being. And notice you're not an authentic cigar guy. You're not an authentic brand owner. You're not an authentic tobacconist. You're an authentic human.
Thank
And when you relate to people on that level, it ultimately it does gain favor, because even if someone who didn't like the voyage, they remembered you,
Right.
and they might have followed you to Roma, which we'll be talking about in a second in your part of the journey. And that might have led to them, smoking Roma craft because of you. Um,
Right.
and now they're going to try Voyage 2.0, and they're like, oh, it's different. I didn't like the first variation, but now he's working with this different factory. I remember Danny, and it's all about Danny. So, ultimately, I think that kind of authenticity has served you well. I mean, considerably speaking. And like, I'll give you a great example of this. Like, um, when we met up at the Roma Craft party a couple of years ago at the trade show, you actually introduced me to Jesse, and it wasn't you weren't even with her. You went and got her, and you said, "Hey, I need you to meet this guy."
Yeah, I
And
remember.
like, who the fuck am I? And you're pulling your wife away from some conversation to introduce her to me. And you remember this. I don't know if you remember this. We had a conversation about, I mean, I was incredibly grateful and humbled by that. I'm a family man too, just like you. And it meant a lot to me, for you to introduce me to your wife and make a point of like, hey, this is important. Bear's important, and
Right.
I want you to know who he is. Um and for not for 1 second did I think that there was any ulterior motive or anything like that. It was
Right.
just who you were, and it was like, again, I already had a great affection for you, so it wasn't like you went up a couple of notches or anything like that. But it it certainly lends weight to the entire point of your last your last
Yeah.
remarks there. So it's I think it's one of the most troubling things in this industry is, how do you connect with people? And I think you just solved it for them. While you felt you were rambling a second ago, to use your words, you weren't, but to use your
Right.
words, you just solved the issue. And I think anyone who can watch this or listen to this podcast, hit the rewind button. If you're having
Yeah.
trouble selling cigars, if you're a retailer, if you're having trouble selling cigars and you're a brand owner, if you're having trouble buying cigars and you're a consumer, you need to connect
Right.
with someone like yourself, because there are more people like you. This isn't like,
Sure.
unfortunately you don't have the franchise, but it's ultimately the ticket to your success and everything. So I think that was very apt. Um,
Well, one, I appreciate that, and you remembering to meet Jesse, or meeting Jesse, and I'll tell you, I mean, that time that we met, not the time we met, but at the Halloween party, the fact, and we were talking about this earlier, the fact that your wife came with your son because it was your birthday, like, just to be able to give you that with your son, but also to give that to your son, because like with my kids, our birthdays are super important, right? So like they'll make cards, and they're like, oh, it's dad's birthday, it's mom's birthday, right? So when I saw that happen to you, that just told me everything I needed to know about you, about your wife and your kid. And from there I was like, this guy's a real person. And you probably remember, I was actually driving to Austin
mhm.
from Maryland, and you called me and we talked for, I don't know, an hour or so or whatever. I don't remember exactly, but and in my head, I'm like, I just remember thinking, it's like, man, I was humbled, because I was like, man, I'm nothing right now. I'm like, I haven't even started. But the fact that we were talking about you know you know I guess how to work together with for Roma and Michaels, and just the communication was great. I was like, man, he's a real good dude, right? So I think that, like, where I'm going with that is, I can sense that out, right? When you're authentic to yourself, one, that'll, like, if you know yourself and you're real with yourself, and it lets you be real with other people, it's easy to pick up who the real ones and who the not real ones, will say,
Sure.
are, right? And so, even for nothing else, just to help you, not you, the general you, help someone figure out who the authentic real people are, be a real authentic person, and the people will stick out. And I don't know, it's just kind of how we live our lives, I guess.
No,
But
100%.
thank you.
You're very welcome. 100% though. Like I think it goes to the fact that, I mean, there are some people out there that even highly confident and competent people in this industry that, and this is in any industry in the entire world that we live in. There are some people that are just not comfortable in their own skin. This
Right.
it's just who they are. So their only course of action is to put up a facade of some some case, and that's not even necessarily that sounds incredibly negative, like I'm being really
Right.
but that's not even, I'm not trying to be, that's their mechanism to deal with
To
that.
deal. Yeah.
But when you have that authenticity, like you have, and like a lot of people in this industry do have it, it really connects with people on a much deeper level. Like I said, there are people out there that probably smoked your cigar and didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guarantee those people still followed you. They followed you to Roma, and they're going to follow you to, this 2.0 that you're embarking on. So I think that, again, I'll just repeat myself. I think it served you well. So going into your years at Roma Craft with Skip and Mike and the team there, they really embraced you as part of the family and part of the culture. It was almost immediate. I mean, I remember that even the t-shirts came out that had, Martin and Rosales and Vazquez and Disla. And
Yeah.
I mean, you were immediately a part of the soul of that company. We're going to go back to the why here in a second, but what did I just want to go to this really quick. What did that mean to you to be kind of accepted so quickly into a budding company that was really hitting their stride and has really kind of taken over the industry in a lot of ways?
Yeah. Well, there's kind of twofold there, right? One is being kind of accepted by the team, that was at first, the most important thing, obviously, which was explored on the interview process, right? And I've told the story a dozen times, or shit, more than that. But when I interviewed, I flew out to Oklahoma and met up with Rosales out there, and I had never spoken to Mike. I had never met him. I knew Skip, obviously, like everyone else does, through social media. Him and I had gone back and forth through, messages for a little bit. But I had, just because I was so into my world and building, my brand and being in the Northeast and all that, I didn't know Mike that way. So, he picks me up from the hotel. I landed and got to the hotel. He picks me up, and it could have went one way or another. It could have, a few hours later, circled right back to the hotel and said, "Hey, just head back home." Or it could have ended the way it did. There was only two possibilities, right? Like, either it worked out or it didn't. So, when Mike and I kind of clicked right away, that was good. He saw my interactions instantly, at shops, and there was a few people that kind of knew me. We did an event together, which I really just kind of sat back, and watched. Obviously, I didn't want to screw it up. And then, go down to Austin and met the team there. And they were very family based, and I'm very family based, and it just kind of worked out. So that was great. But now, how would it work on the other side, right? Like, Roma was really big, or is really big, on social media. Roma has these deep, like these, how do you say it? Like, deep kind of roots with a lot of stores and accounts. And how are these people going to accept the fact that, hey, they're not necessarily calling Mike Rosales directly anymore, or there's someone other than Mike Rosales calling? So I was very, very conscious of that. said, hey, I'm not looking to twist anyone's arm or to work with me, but hey, I'm here for you. And matter of fact, my first 2 weeks there, Skip and Mike were actually in Intertabac in Europe, right? So it was trial by fire for the first couple of weeks, and I just went ahead and called every account and said, hey, I'm just a new person, and again, just super authentic on just no, hey, you can still call Mike if you want. I just want to give you my information. If there's ever anything you need to reach out, feel free to. Here's my email and all that. So I think it worked fairly well because of the fact that I had that ability to show people that I was there authentically to take care of them. Right. It wasn't a situation where I was getting commission, right? So I'm there. Hey, I got to sell you. Because I got to pay my rent this month, right? So I was able to take that and really build the relationships with. Well, there was some. There was some crossover, right? There were some stores that we were both in, and there were some brand new stores. There were stores that I knew them, and it just worked because I was able to sell myself as someone that will take care of the retailer, and knowing how to handle myself on social media was a big thing also, and in person while doing events, and so it worked. It worked perfectly, and so I guess your question was, what was that feeling? Yeah, there was some fear driving down, right? And there was some fears like, man, because at the time it wasn't like I was there to build Roma. Roma was doing a fairly good job. My job was to not screw it up and make it better, right? Like how can we give our retail partners more experience, or a better, not so much better like an upgrade, but just like another avenue where they could still get the same good service and questions answered, and someone's there to answer the phone, and travel to do events and things like that, right? So the feeling was fear at the beginning, and then once you kind of feel that acceptance, it was just like it was humility to take, like, hey, I have something here that I can use to help other people build their businesses, right? And ultimately, and especially we found out this year with COVID, but it's just like, if you're there to genuinely help the retailer build their business, that'll come back to you, right? And it worked, right? So here we are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So going back to well, you kind of already kind of led me to the beginning of that, which is, and it goes full circle to our discussion about your authenticity. Skip and Mike are notorious for keeping their, as Skip says, their circle tight.
Yeah.
They're very picky. The interview process for the few people that they've hired on is very lengthy and very diligent, and they have to make sure that it's a perfect fit. And knowing that you navigated that gauntlet, I mean, has to be, yes, like you said, fearful, but it also has to be, very humbling to know that, like, that they saw this and had this immediate connection with you, and knew
Right.
that they could trust you to continue what they had started.
Yeah, I mean, and that was obviously some trust that needed to be earned. Thankfully, they were able to see, and especially Skip, pretty right away. I was a brand owner, and that I would take ownership of how the brand looked, and what the brand stood for, and that I would take the brand seriously, and the product seriously, and the factory seriously, and that coupled with the fun stuff also, right? Which anybody can do the fun stuff easily, because that's the cool stuff. But yeah, for sure, and especially, like, they didn't necessarily it wasn't like they posted a job posting for this, right?
Right.
But
Exactly. Another point
right,
there.
right. And so if you don't know, like when I shut my company down, Skip was one of the very first people to reach out, not with a job offer or anything, but just saying, hey man, what you were doing was really cool. You know, sorry to hear it. If you ever need anything, just let me know. Right. Because as I know now, Skip watches everything. So cigar show wise. Right. And, you know, I was just someone that kept popping up on the radar. So when the announcement came out that they had hired me, I mean, the reaction in the industry and locally, especially in Texas, because of all those reps that would have died to have that job, the reaction was like, "Who is this?" Right? Like, there was at the time I went from feeling like, "Hey, I know a lot of people," to a lot of people like, "Who is this guy?" Right? And I think that, you know, as a company and you know, myself, we did a really good job of, it's like, hey, I'm one of the guys, I'm here, and it just worked, right? And but you know, there was a lot of the like, you know, who is that guy? Like, hey man, I could do a better job than that guy. Like, who, you know, and people, obviously people sending resumes like, hey, if it doesn't work out, or hey, you know, we didn't know you're hiring. You know, if you're gonna hire someone else, you know, I'd love to submit my resume. And you know, uh, even I didn't, it's funny, I didn't expect that was one of the few things that took me by surprise, was the amount of people that were just like, oh, I could do this better than. It's like, all right, well, you can't because you're not here, sorry, you know. Right. But anyway, it was definitely, you know, something you think about. It's like, man, you know, there was a lot of people that would want this job, right? So take it seriously, don't fuck it up.
I think that that those people, those negative Nancy's, I guess, aside, I think there were a lot of people that were just really genuinely excited for both parties for two different reasons. Like, I was genuinely excited for you that you found a home, so, you know, relatively quickly, you know, after the disappointment of having to shut down Baracoa. Um, like I said, I took your closing of that company so personally. But I was also, being a huge fan of Romacraft, and you know, having a really good relationship with Skip and Mike as I do, I was really excited for them too. Um, and so it was just kind of like, from the outsider's perspective looking in, it was like it was the perfect marriage. You know, it was really exciting. And you know, you took the opportunity and ran with it, and you did an incredible job, and the company grew during that time, and that is in no short a part of what Skip and Mike did, but that no shorter of what you did as well. And that allowed them to bring on other great people, like, you know, like Sean recently, and of course John D. Oliver, which was the next guy in line. And
Right.
I've never said this. I should probably say this to John's face, but I saw John at a number of Romacraft events, and he's, you know, he's worked with the company for a few years now, and I'm assuming he's close to paying off the amount of cigars that he's purchased from Mike and Skip before he became hired. So I should probably say that to his face. I don't mean that as a negative. He was a huge fan, a huge supporter.
Yeah.
That made sense too, and I was really excited for John. And I
Yeah.
was really excited for Romacraft again. And I was like, man, this is, you know, again, from the outside perspective looking in, it was just like, this
Right.
is just terrific. They've got Danny, they've got John. I mean, this is, oh my God, this is just fantastic. And so, in your time at Romacraft, Danny, and now with the launching of 2.0, this may be an incredible, difficult question to ask, but, or to answer, rather, not ask. The asking is easy. That's my job. The answering might be difficult to ask. What's the biggest lesson that you're taking from your time there, and applying it to 2.0?
Yeah. There's not just one lesson. I mean, I'm gonna be completely honest. There's a lot of things that, um, I mean, there's a lot of things that I learned in my time there, and I think that, um, being able to take those things and apply them to the plans that we have now. But ultimately taking, and it sounds so scripted, but taking care of the end customer, whatever that means, right? So whether that's a consumer that's buying the product, or if that's the retail store, taking care of them and their needs first is the most important thing, as that will come back to you, right? For instance, 2018, Roma Craft stopped making Neanderthal, and I'm sure you remember the great drought of Neanderthal in 2018. We went 10 months without selling any of it, and to find out that we actually, the factory actually could have thrown on some San Andreas, made some Neanderthals, and got that money in, but ultimately hurt the quality of the cigar because the wrapper, wasn't up to, Skip and Esteban's level of what's the word I'm missing here, but
up to their standard.
Up to their standard. Would be a hard thing for a lot of companies to do. Neanderthal is their most expensive brand at the time, was their most expensive brand. And it second to Cro-Magnon is their second best selling brand. And to go 10 months and just say, we're not gonna make it until it's ready, we're not gonna sell it until it's ready, was huge for me. It's like, man, I get it. And to eventually, once we did have it, we were, sold out of it again for 6 months or so. That was a big lesson of, don't go for that cash grab. You're building something here. Why are you going to bastardize what you're doing just to get, a payday now? Because ultimately it would have hurt, right? So if Roma had made the decision to sell the Neanderthal anyway, and it hurt the quality of it, and then people are off of it, how do you go back in and say, well, hey, we fixed the issue, try it again? It's like, let's just tell these people, let's just tell the truth and say, hey, it's not ready, and we don't want you to smoke it. We don't want you to smoke that. You're not going to like it. Or even if you do like it, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean it was going to be a terrible cigar.
It's but again,
it wasn't right. It's not Neanderthal. That was big. The keeping your circle small theory is it. That is a huge thing, just kind of overall in life. I mean, if you think about how many people on social media, right? Or all the people you went to high school with, or all the guys you grew up with, right? Like, seriously, how many of those people do you still associate with or hang out with or talk to all the time? And even if it is a bunch of them, how many of those people would you trust period? Trust. So, I mean, that's another, kind of another big thing, but, really just making sure you're taking care of the things that you are supposed to take care of, right? Like, hey, customers, retailers, partners, social media, or, the cigar media, they have expectations of us, of me as a person. And it is my job to make sure that, what I say I'm going to do for you, or what the expectations that I set for you, are met. And the way I'm never disappointed is if I make sure I don't set expectations for you, for me, right? So, like, it's kind of like, if you do something nice for someone, you should never have the expectation of, like, I did something nice for them, that person owes me, because chances are you're going to get disappointed, right? But the way you're never disappointed is if you making sure that you can sleep at night because you're doing everything you said you were going to do, and you're doing everything that you can do to help build a business and to sell and to do those things. So, there was a lot of lessons, for sure. Having a great team is also key. So, as my wife and I here are, the team right now. The goal is to get to a point where we need to build that team, and that thought process, or I'm sorry, that process of hiring or whatever will be as stringent, because, I can teach someone cigars. I can teach someone, how to, I don't know, do certain tasks, right? But you can't teach someone to get along with you, or you can't teach someone to just be able to be part of the team. And you can't, it's almost, I mean, you can teach authenticity, but if to find someone that just already has it, that'll be something that, I feel like we've used that word authenticity a little too much, but that's kind of what I'd be looking for. It's just like,
I
dude, if
started
you
it,
have,
Danny. You don't have to, so.
yeah, but those are ultimately going to be the important things to us. And you know, again, there's a lot of really good takeaways from my time there.
I think another thing that could sum up our entire conversation, Danny, and not to give you too much of a plug, but to give you a plug is the hashtag never settle.
Right.
You didn't settle the first time around. You took a 2-year process to build the voyage. You didn't settle when you made your next move. They certainly didn't settle either. They got some incredible asset in you to help build their brand. And now the second iteration of Baracoa is going to be the same process that you just described. So I think that should be your tagline. So I'm glad that it is,
Yeah,
because I think it's very appropriate.
appreciate it.
To slightly turn on more recent events, but
Sure.
kind of jokingly but not jokingly, something else you didn't settle on was a most recent decision, which is something you've been showing off to us tonight. You've been adjusting your sleeve constantly because I know it's irritating you. The new
It's bothering
tattoo,
me.
the
Yeah,
new
yeah.
tattoo, your first tattoo.
First tattoo.
I don't have any tattoos, so you obviously didn't settle because it took you a long process to make the decision.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about the ink, man. I'm interested about the story. Why now? Why did you decide to do it at this point? And what's the story behind it?
Yeah, I've been trying to get a tattoo for a few years, and a couple things have just not worked out in my favor. But I always kind of had this concept of things that I wanted to do. My wife has a bunch of tattoos that I just love, and I wanted to get something that was meaningful, but that I could also build off of. And I mean, honestly, my plan is to be too sleeved up, and it's something. Unfortunately, I've waited till I was 40 to start it, but it's something I've wanted for a while. So I was fairly excited. I don't know how much you can tell there. If you go to my Instagram, you guys can see a picture of it. But it is obviously a compass, and the words "never settle" are actually there also. And for me, the compass just shows the directions that you can go, right? But as long as you have these core, this wayfinder of this way of finding your way through things, or you have those tools in your life, right? Or you have that personality in you, or you have that drive in you, that passion in you, you can go in any one of those directions and be successful. um, and everyone obviously has their own definition of success, right? So for some people it's a dollar amount. For some people it's just a well-rounded life with kids and family and uh, things like that. uh, and that's why I just really identified with the compass when we came up with the band and the logo, the Baracoa logo and the band for the voyage, that both the compass are prevalent on there, um, because it'll just help you find your way, right? Whatever way that is, whether you want to go north, south, east, or west, um, the compass will help you find it, right? And that's just kind of where I'm at, right? It's hey, you know, our direction has changed, right? We're not in Texas anymore, right? So where are we going? Well, this is where we want to go. All right. So this metaphorical compass that we kind of use, it helps us. For me, it's just, there is a way to get there, right? And if you think about, like, I mean, think about the compass when that was invented, right? How that changed things, right? I mean, it's like GPS, right? If you think about before GPS, right? What was it, MapQuest, right? Like, you would have to print ways, and before that there was legit maps, and before that there was some dude, your buddy would write down terrible directions for you to get there, right? So it's just very personal to me on that aspect, for overall, just in life, whatever that, if it isn't the cigar industry in a couple years, if I'm a t-shirt guy, or I'm selling used cars, which was a big theory people thought I was going to do. Uh, Either way, I need direction, right? So if I'm going to be a used car salesman, I'm going to be the best fucking used car salesman on that lot, right? And since I never settle, I want to be a new car salesman, and then I want to be the sales manager, and then I want to be the general, the assistant general manager, then I want to be the general manager, right? That's just how I'm wired. It's never it's just never enough for me to just have that entry level job. uh, I mean, since I was 16, 17 years old working at McDonald's, um, it wasn't enough that I just worked there. I was like, well, that guy makes a little more money than me, so I want to do that, or that guy runs this, or and in kind of everywhere I've gone, it's just, um, I guess, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but there's people that have been at their job for 30, 35 years, 40 years, what, they've been there forever. And yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm like, wow, like that's commendable. But at the same time, it's like, man, you didn't try to do something more. Like, you never got something inside of you that said, man, I'd love to do this, or
Mhm.
this or work in this department, or I'd love to run my department. Or at the very least, right?
Right.
Run your run your department. So that's the whole concept here, of the tattoo. And there'll be some things that I get added onto it, like I kind of explained. um I think my wife has agreed to get the same tattoo. She really loved it, so that'd be cool if she got that
Oh,
somewhere on her.
nice.
Because it means, it means the same to her. She gets it, right? And she's very much the same way. She's very driven. uh and um I don't know, it just means that to me right now, even though it's itching the shit out of me right now, and my sweater is rubbing on it a little bit, but in a few days it'll be fine.
It was really interesting when I saw on social media that you were getting this tattoo, because that, again, tying back to how you tie into me so personally, Danny, is that the compass actually plays a really important part in my family too. So this past Father's Day, I gifted my father a necklace of a compass. My dad doesn't have any tattoos either, but and then on the back of this necklace of a compass was engraved the names of my mother and his children. Um, and he's like, "Wow, son, this was really nice." And my mom was on the call, and we were talking, and she's like, "Well, my mom's question is always why." Sometimes it comes. My mom's questions always, the why always comes across as a little bit of abrasive.
Snarky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
snarky, abrasive.
Why?
Yeah, why would you do this? But the I was, and I said, well, Dad, you always said to me that, no matter what direction you were going, your true north was always your family. And my dad's memory, unfortunately, is slipping these days because he's suffering from dementia. And
Oh, sorry.
thank you. And he he paused really long, and I didn't know. I was like, Dad, are you there? And he's like, I remember you saying that. He's like, I remember saying that to you. And I was like, well, you said it a lot, Dad. So yeah. And
That's good.
he was like, you remembered that? And I said, of course. And, there, it's interesting. There's always words, from our family, those we love and those we care about and everything that kind of echo, in our, I guess in our souls, if we're going to get a little over dramatic, but they always kind of echo, right?
Yeah.
And so every time I see the compass, it always reminds me of that. And so when I saw that, when you were getting that tattoo, it really made me smile, because I was like, it made me think of my own father, and it also made me think about. I said, this is perfect. This is perfect for you, because the voyage, right? The
Right.
journey. So I was very pleased with your decision. No, I
For
was
sure.
really, I was really touched by it. I really was. I thought that was like, oh, this is absolutely perfect.
Right.
This is really cool. So I really dig it. I think it's really awesome, and I was really excited to hear the story from it.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's I, it was important for especially your first tattoo, because you never know if it's going to be your last tattoo, right? You never know, just in case. It had to have some meaning behind it, not just, you know uh, I don't know, I've seen some pretty awful tattoos, right? So um, and I think honestly that may have been what took me so long, is just I wasn't 100% clear on what it is I wanted to get. um, and then we kind of sat out here in an evening session, and I said, fuck it, we're doing this, so let's figure it out. But that's cool to hear, man. It's kind of serendipitous.
For sure. Um, Danny, this is the second week in a row that I've failed to keep up with my tradition. My tradition is always the last two questions. Before my last two questions, I always thank my guests for their time. We actually are going into our very last question, which is our curveball segment.
Cool.
I would like you, if you can, stay on after the interview for just a couple minutes. I would like to talk to you about something, but
Sure.
um, this is always the time of the interview that I always really want to thank my guest. As you mentioned, you're a family man. I'm a family man, and for you, on a Sunday evening, which is always family time, especially with Thanksgiving just happening. I mean, this was a heck of a week for all of us, even with COVID going on and everything. So I'm sure you were incredibly busy. I'm sure you're terribly exhausted, and for you to sit down with me for a couple of hours has just meant the world to me. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank Jessie for me. I know she's right by your side as always.
She's
Um,
listening.
so for her to give some time as well, and give you up for a couple of hours, even though she's sitting right with you. It means the world to me. So thank you to you both. Thank you.
Oh no, it's our pleasure, man. This is great.
Um, so going into our curveball segment, Danny, this is just really excited to sit down with you tonight. This was more than I even wanted. This was perfect, and but we kind of kicked off the night talking about Home Alone, so I wanted to end the night with a curveball segment from Home Alone. So you remember all the hijinks, all the pranks that well, not pranks, even the techniques, and you talked about his genius at the beginning of the show, and as
Right.
far as all the things that he did to defend his home. So my curveball question is two-part. So as a child, which prank or which thing did you either fantasize about or try to recreate in some form and fashion? I'm going to answer this question too. And in the days of now, in 2020, we have Ring and we have all these high tech, security devices and stuff. Like, which one do you think would be more practical, or which one would you just like to have as a home defense item for your own house as an adult now? So that's my two-part question. I'm going to answer this too, but I wanted to, wanted to throw this out there.
Yeah, super curveball. This is like one of those really fast curveballs. Um, Pranks and stuff. I was growing up. I wasn't super mischievous, but I would do stuff that uh, I don't know, maybe I thought was funny. Um, but then turned out it wasn't necessarily so. I mean, you're asking like a prank that I would have done when I was younger, or
From
from
the
the Home
movie that
Alone.
yeah, from Home Alone that you saw and you were like, man, like you tried to recreate it or you fantasized about recreating it in some form or fashion.
Oh, you got to admit, like at the time, I thought the funniest part was the um, when he ordered the pizza and played the VHS tape,
Yes.
right? And he just played and paused it and got the pizza for free. Um, uh, Obviously, me as with an inner fat kid, that would have been fantastic to do. Because if you think about it, man, if you really look back at that crappy little TV in that kitchen, for that pizza guy to think that that was really happening, it was so
A
outrageous.
nitpick aside about the movie, but yes, yes.
Right. Um, Anyway, that was, I remember now that we're talking about it specifically, thinking like, oh my god, that was so genius. He got a free pizza because of this movie, and I remember that for sure. Um, so yeah, that's that one. As far as technology, me being a former like IT guy and being into all that stuff, I think Ring was the one that was on Shark Tank, and I remember seeing that product, and I just like, you know, with the advent of smartphones coming changed everything. All right,
Sure.
so the fact that and now especially Ring has all the stuff, and there's a million companies doing all this stuff. You know,
Google,
I'm re
Amazon, everything. Yeah, just everything.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Ring, especially like the community, like the apps that they have, and you can, you know, um, if there's something going on in the neighborhood, they can all share the video, and finding people, and it's keeping Amazon, FedEx, and UPS all honest, right? There's no more throwing the TV over the fence because the guy was too lazy to bring it to the door, or whatever, right? And you know those are things that we have now, and being able to, we would even have like what's the other, there's another one of the first like camera companies, like personal in-home security cameras that you could just like look it on your phone,
Right.
that really started replacing like baby monitors. Like I would have one in my kids' room and all around the house, and you can just kind of check where everybody's at, and being able to talk through it from your phone and see. I love all that shit. I'm a huge Alexa guy. We have Alexas, in different rooms, and play music, and I can call one room and from the other. For my phone, I can get on Alexa and do all that stuff. So I honestly, I love all of it. People, oh, what about your privacy? And I'm like, whatever. Nobody's listening to me. They're bored. Whatever. But um, yeah, I love all that stuff.
Is there anything anything out of the movie that you would love to employ right now, like the blowtorch over the door,
Holy shit.
or anything like that that just would be cool? You think, or do you
The
think that's just a little extreme?
what was it? It was all pretty extreme now if you think about it. With the honey with the saran wrap and then the feathers. I've I've secretly thought about doing that to a kid of mine, or like one of my kids, somehow. And then, unfortunately, as the parent, I would end up being the one to clean it up because my wife would look at me like, yeah, I'm not cleaning that up. So, those things, stop me from doing it. But, little things like that, were, were hilarious. Now, when he poured the water down the steps and they slipped, that wasn't funny to me because I had that experience.
Oh
Um,
God, yeah, that's
and
brutal. That hurts my
oh,
back every time I see it.
yeah, yeah,
Every time.
yeah.
Um, awesome. I too did the movie pause thing. I did it with my mom a few times. You mentioned our upbringings being different, and Tombstone being my first rated R film. My house was a big John Wayne house, and so I would use the tape that I wore out was the movie Rio Bravo with John Wayne, Dean Martin, Ricky Nelson, and I there's a certain part in the um a certain part in the movie where they're talking through a jail door about coming in, and so I borrowed, because we only had one TV in the house, but I borrowed a VCR and I borrowed a television and I put it in my room, and my mom knocked on the door and she asked me a question, and I played bits from the Rio Bravo movie to her, and she's like, "Are you feeling okay?" Like, she totally was lost.
That's so
It
funny.
was so awesome. It was such a great feeling. Like, that I
It
quasi
worked.
pulled out. It sort of. And she caught on the third. She's like, "How'd you get the TV in there?" Like, and I opened the door. She saw what I had done, and she was like, "You're unbelievable." And I'm like, I was like, just like, I wanted to try it so bad, and I did it. Pulled it off. It was great.
That's awesome.
And I think that even today, as a 37-year-old parent and everything, I still would do that. That would be my home defense thing of choice, is having the voice of some like mafioso guy, just like, you got, he's like, "I'm gonna give you to the count of 3 before I bump your guts full of lead." So I would totally employ that today. Absolutely. Hands down. Hands down. Hands down. Well, Danny, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you tonight. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So excited for Baracoa Cigar Company version 2.0. This is going to be an incredible thing for the industry, incredible thing for you, an incredible thing for consumers and retailers alike. I'm so excited. So excited.
Dude, I appreciate it. And, thanks for being really one of the first people to reach out and say, "Hey man, I just want to talk. Let's hang out." The way people hang out now, right? Through Zoom. And, no, I appreciate you even, considering this having, me having any entertainment value. Right. And, like I said, we don't take anything for granted, and just love kind of getting back into this mode of having talks with cigar people, and really preaching what we're all about, and talking about just our love for the cigar industry, but just also taking care of people, and I don't know, doing this right, this entertaining people and having fun with people and meeting and having cool conversations, right? So this is great, man. I really appreciate it. And shout out to you for with what you've done with this show over the last few years.
Thank you very much. It's been an awesome journey. It's been an awesome voyage, to coin a term about a phrase, but been incredible, and you're certainly a part of that, Danny. You came on the show with Mike Rosales a couple years ago, and I was just excited to sit down with you and talk about your journey. I knew this was something I wanted to do, and this was the perfect avenue to do it, with the launch of Baracoa Cigar Company again, the relaunch rather. And so this was absolutely perfect. Thank you so much. For our audience, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all your likes, shares, and comments. If you're tuning into our Facebook Live broadcast, be sure to go to our Facebook page, ELOSOFUMAR, and like the page and follow it. You can also check us out on YouTube, the ELOSOFUMAR YouTube channel, and follow us there. But if you are listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts later on, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you download, subscribe, and review. If you already are a subscriber, I encourage you to unsubscribe, but please don't forget to resubscribe. That really boosts my numbers and allows me to keep getting on great guests like Danny on. So this will be another a great notch in the takes belt for sure. A great slew of upcoming guests after this week. We've got Alan Rubin of Alec and Bradley coming on next week. Casey Johnson and Dan Welsh of L'Atelier Tatuaje Brands. So excited to have them. Casey making his second appearance, Dan making his first. Our 150th take coming on December 20th. Christmas come early. Nick Perdomo will be celebrating our 150th take with us. And we'll be taking a week off after that for Christmas. But to kick off the new year, the top 10 cigars of 2020 for ELOSOFUMARTAKES. So exciting stuff coming up. Really excited for everyone. Excited for this. This has been an incredible journey. So thank you all to everyone out there. This was our 147th take, live from the HF Barcelona studios of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always. He's Danny Vazquez. Guess what, everyone? We'll see you next time.